A little disclaimer before we get rolling here. You're about to hear some ads. They are all from local entities that want to support the baseball community. A lot of these guys have deep connections. We're players themselves, so if you see having a need for any one of these services, please go patronize these guys. Thank you. We are also brought to you by Washco Strength and Speed, located at 3604 North Peoria Road. There's also a second location in Jacksonville. Jared can be reached at 217-899-3233. I do not think there is a better place to take your youth athlete, specifically a baseball or softball player, than Washco Strength and Speed. Jared was an SHG grad. He went to ISU. He pitched at SCI. He has his certified strength and conditioning specialist, which is the top certification you can get in the game. He is on it with his programming. He stays on new modalities and training methods. He offers summer camps, team training, group training, arm care, velocity work. The proof is really in the pudding when it comes to Jared. All of his athletes get stronger, they get faster, they get more explosive. They're less injury prone. He's cranking out athletes to college. If you really care about your athlete and you want to invest in them, send them to Washco Strength and Speed. We are also brought to you by Hurwitz Enterprises. They can be reached at 217-544-4002. Get a hold of them for all your commercial real estate needs. They've been the best in the business since 1978 around here. I'm talking Joe, I'm talking Mimi, I'm talking Mikey, all working there. This is an absolute baseball family. I love the Hurwitz family. Jake, the older brother, played at Illinois College. Henry played with me at Lincoln Lane Community College, one of my favorite all-time teammates. And Mikey, the youngest, was a stud at the U of I. Again, love this family. Go support them. Thanks, Hurwitz. We are also brought to you by Matt Brewer. Matt is an attorney here in town at the law offices of Stephen Kelly. Matt exclusively practices in the areas of personal injury and workers' compensation. He can be reached at 217-544-8000 or mbrewer@stephenkelly.com. I loved competing against this guy growing up. He was an SHG grad, 2002, stud in football and baseball. Went on to star for Dan Callahan at SIU Carbondale and then had a one-year career pitching in the Diamondbacks organization. I ran into this guy the other day. He looks like he could still lace him up. We appreciate you, Matt. We are also brought to you by Sitco Chiropractic. They can be reached at 217-525-2035 and sitcochiropractic.com. They offer chiropractic care, corrective exercises, lifestyle advice, nutritional counseling, spinal and postural screenings. They are located at 205 North Grand Avenue. Love the Sitco family. From the dad, Steven, to Kyle and Casey, I grew up with them. Their brother Tyler was a big-time baseball player at SHG and SCI. There's a reason they have over 70 ratings on Google, and they're all 5.0. These guys are great. I went to them a few years back for some back issues I was having. They'll fix you right up. Go see Sitco Chiropractic. Today's episode is brought to you by Jason Knadler and the Bank of Springfield. I will be the first to tell you that I am not the most literate person financially, but I do know people, and I know that the Bank of Springfield has invested in a lot of people that I know and trust. They have invested heavily in former local area athletes and baseball players. Off the top of my head, I can think of, Jason Knadler, Justin Knadler, Eric Weaver, Tim Wallen, Greg Morantz, Frank Stefano, Murph Mathiet, Ryan Murphy. These are all guys that I know and trust and would have no problems putting my financial future in their hands. And so Bank of Springfield is always involving themselves in local charities and the community and talks about being a family. So if you're going to put your money somewhere, take it to Bank of Springfield. These are guys you can trust. We are also brought to you by Body Cemetery, located at 2201 West White Oaks Drive, bodycemetery.com. More specifically, Chad Marshik, the owner, head trainer. This guy is just amazing on so many levels. He is capable of training anyone from a child to a pro athlete to just your normal everyday person to the elderly. And not only is he a trainer, but he is also adept with, physical therapy, nutrition. Everything is going to be customized to you and what you need. There's a movement analysis when you first come in to address any deficiencies you have. It's all customized. Chad is the most positive, happy guy I've ever been around. Body Symmetry will get you right. I would, put my faith in Chad and his trainers any day. So go to bodysymmetry.com, get set up. Chad, we appreciate you. Thank you. We are also brought to you by Cardinal Cleaning. They can be reached at cardinalcleaningonline.com and 217-679-6567. The owner-operator, Adam Springer, local baseball dude, family friend, standout at Chatham Glenwood in the mid-'90s. Also had a stellar career at Rend Lake and Kentucky Wesleyan. Cardinal Cleaning can take care of any cleaning needs you have. Home, business, restaurant, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever you need, they can take care of you. Get a hold of Cardinal Cleaning. They'll do the rest. We are also brought to you by Sheehan and Sheehan Lawyers, located at 1215 South 4th Street, Suite A. They can be contacted at 217-544-0701. I'm talking Pat Sr., Pat Jr., and Willie. They can be contacted for adoption needs, agricultural law, business and commercial law, estate planning, real estate planning, taxation, traffic and minor traffic offenses, personal injury, wrongful death suits. And I grew up with Willie playing baseball on the Southwest Braves. We were state champs. He played high school baseball and soccer at SHG. Pat Jr. was an accomplished baseball player at SHG, SCI, and finally the U of I. We really appreciate the Sheens here. Love this guy. Love this family. Great, great family. So go see these guys. Appreciate you. We are also brought to you by Milner Dentistry, located at 755 South Grand Avenue West. They can be reached at 217-528-3384. Dr. Ty and his staff are incredible. The place is clean. They do amazing work. They can handle all your dentistry needs. Thanks again to Dr. Ty for agreeing to sponsor us here. He was a standout at Rochester, SCI, and then later had a really cool story of walking on at the U of I. Have a ton of respect for this guy. Please go support Dr. Ty and Milner Dentistry. Jay Crawford, we're back.
All right, we're back. Hello.
We got you. We just had a minor technical difficulty there. We're starting it over here. Post-game spread, we are back. Thank you, Jay Crawford, for joining us. This is going to be so special, such a treat. Let's dive right in. Craw's got a bunch of nicknames here. Crawdaddy, Crawdad, Spitty, Spitty Spat, Cat Daddy. Man, this guy was a member of the Springfield Flame, was a member of the Springfield Thunder, who won the 1995 16 and under Cabo World Series, and were inducted into the Springfield Sports Hall of Fame in 2016. He graduated from Chatham Glenwood in 1997, where he was a state champ in 96, a runner-up in 95, with a 30-4 career record, 1.80 ERA, 281 Ks, and 212 and two-thirds innings. Second single-season Ks with 150. Drafted in the 24th round by the Oakland Athletics in 97, had a 3-year career in the A's minor league system before shoulder injuries derailed him. I have talked to so many people getting ready for this. It's been incredible. Diving into your backstory has been awesome. I talked to Kim Werth, the matriarch of the Werth family, and I'm gonna give Kim Werth right now her proper resume because she's just got a lot of things to her name, So Please Kim Werth, certified dream crusher, 9 individual state gold medals, AAU national champion in 73, USA junior team in 73. Champion in 73, big team 75, scholarship to Iowa State. Chicago Tribute Athlete of the Year, Billie Jean King of the Year 75. USA Olympic Trials 1976, University of Florida Track 82, 1984 Florida Gators track and field most outstanding athlete, and once famously threatened to ground Jason if he didn't score 20 points in a basketball game. Love this lady. I know you have a very special relationship with her too. We're gonna get to that. See also Dennis Werth, her husband, former big leaguer, skip of the Thunder. Adam Feld, one of your good buddies. Lost 1 game in high school, absolute stud. Played at Mineral Area, Lincoln Land, in Kentucky Wesleyan. Brad Savoda, man, what an absolute football legend from the area. You can't think football in the area and not think Brad Savoda.
Goosebumps just thinking about him.
He was a member of that Thunder team and played football later at Colorado State. Skip Clayton from the famous Clayton baseball family. He was a freshman on that state team. And Clayton went to Three Rivers and SCI. The famous Coach Pat Mooney, man, longtime Glenwood baseball skipper.
Legend. Yep.
Absolute legend. Yep. And
yep.
We've only spoke one time on the phone previous to this. We've had a lot of texts back and forth, and they've been hilarious.
Yep.
When we first, actually, one of my core memories in baseball actually involves you and Jason, and it was kind of you guys' senior year when everything was going crazy for you guys, and every scout was at those games, and it was like if you knew baseball or loved baseball and you're in the area, you had to go see Jason Werth and Jay Crawford. And I swear I went to Lanphier Park and I saw Jason hit a bomb to right field, and then I think Jason hit a bomb over the lights and left or hit the lights. And you struck out seemingly every batter that you faced. And it was just this like, wow, this is the next level of baseball that I hadn't seen yet. And just an absolute honor to be here talking with you. Everyone I've talked to has talked about how unique you are, how fun, how driven you were. And they were really excited for you to come on and be a guest. Kim was the one who told me to bring you on. So I always listen to Kim.
Oh, wow.
So how are we doing, buddy? Sorry, I just rambled there for like
Dude,
5 minutes.
I am overwhelmed. It means so much to me. I'm thrilled. I want to tell my story. I've been wanting to write about it. I kind of have written bits and pieces. I'm really proud of what I accomplished, and I still feel like I'm out there doing more, representing baseball and loving the game and celebrating my career, which was really short-lived, but it was just so much fun and such a great feel-good story, I think, and I've kind of ran with it, especially these last 10 years, I think, just really like putting things in perspectives, taking a step back and realizing what I went through. And it was like, wow, because for a long time after baseball ended, it was hard. It was hard to deal with that too, so
I went through it too.
There's a lot of layers to dealing with the end of a career like that, even though it was short-lived, because you had expectations, high hopes, and they ended so abruptly, unfortunately. But after all these years, I've reflected and had caught up with some folks here and there, and all the stories that my dad and I would share over the years, and my brother, and every once in a while I would just call my dad out of the blue and go, "Dad, holy crap, what an unbelievable ride it was." And so here we are, and I'm so thankful that you're giving me a platform here.
I can't wait, dude. This is like, and you were like, just like I said, you were a part of my core memories, but I wasn't totally locked into Central Illinois baseball yet. So slightly before me. So it's really cool kind of going back and, talking to some of these guys like Adam Feld, like that guy's an absolute legend, and like that guy he lost one game in high school, and you guys were just understanding the dominance that you guys had out of Chatham. I really got a feel for that, going back and talking to Mooney and all those guys.
I can't wait. And I can't wait to share that with you, because it was really, to me, like a special, community. It was it was a club. It was there was an expectation. There was culture, all attached to this small town of Chatham, Illinois, with this baseball chip on its shoulder, and we just knew how to win. We knew we had the talent. Yeah, so it was just oozing out of us.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to quote you here. An article that I found, it kind of falls just in line here with you said. I think about every day how unreal my childhood baseball experience was. We traveled so many miles and had great experiences, and got to play alongside Feld and Werth. And you said you had the experiences of a pro ball player for 4 years in high school before you ever even played pro ball. And I thought that was such a cool quote.
Yep, and well, it helped having Dennis Werth as my coach in the summer, for a few years, and getting to know him and how he handles himself as a ball player, as a baseball man, as a coach, and all this stuff. And you just like idolize him, or at least I did. And just every move he made, it was like watching a Hall of Famer, or whatever, your favorite ball player, but he's there helping you, and you're, taking every little thing from him like it's Babe Ruth talking to you or whatever,
Right. That kind of like more than a man, less than a God thing,
Yeah. And having that growing up was such a huge advantage, along with all these other huge advantages that I'm going to share with you. So
I can't wait. I also want to take some time to thank some of our new sponsors.
Okay.
We've got a whole bunch of guys that are coming in and flooding, trying to, infuse some more money into the baseball community. It's been awesome. And I am needing it because when I first got a hold of my man here, he said, hey, 1997 24th round picks are in high demand, and it's going to be $100 an hour to do this podcast. So I'm needing the extra money coming in to fund this man right here.
Yep.
Obviously, I'm joking. He hit me with a joke.
I'll give you a discount, though.
What's that?
I'll give you a discount, though, this time, since it's my first interview.
Well, I really appreciate it, man. I'm so pumped. If you listen to this podcast, you know how we get down. We start at the beginning. I think it's really cool to, hear all the minutia and the small details of falling in love with the game. And, when you figure out this is my path, or this is what I want to do, or all the little things that lead up to, to where your career starts, ends, all that stuff. So we start at the end, or at the beginning, man. So growing up in the Crawford household, I did talk to your dad, Mr. Dan Crawford. I got a bunch of quotes here. Tell me a little bit about growing up in the Crawford household, bud.
Well, so Dan, and we like to call him Dan Pa because he's grandpa now. And he likes to be called Dan. So my son started calling him Dan Pa years ago. So that's stuck now. So Dan Pa, he was obsessed with baseball growing up in Iowa because his dad played semi-pro ball for a short period of time.
Yep.
Fort Dodge Moose. It's a north central Iowa. Fort Dodge is a decent sized city. And very rich in baseball. Huge, big time history. There's big time Legion ball up there, and I don't know how it is nowadays, but fantastic baseball fields up there.
Really?
And it's not just about Field of Dreams, although that's kind of ironic because that's close by. But Fort Dodge, Iowa had this legendary high school coach or Legion ball coach, and he won all these state titles and all this stuff. And my dad got to know him or play for him for a short period of time, or was connected somehow in that way while he was growing up. And he was also watching like Yankees games on TV or whatever was on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And he just, he would like teach his 6 sisters how to play baseball, and he'd try and form a team. And, he was just like every chance he got in recess was baseball. And, he took us to Iowa this year. We met him in Iowa, and my family, and we met my brother as well. And my uncle, my dad and my uncle, they're from that area, and we met him this summer. And he showed us around these old baseball parks, and they were just phenomenal. And his old baseball field, like behind this abandoned school in Lakota, Iowa, very small farm town.
Yeah.
He showed us around this summer and showed like all the little things growing up that he went through. And we kind of it was just a wonderful, time spent for a day looking at, his stomping grounds,
Absolutely.
So while he was growing up and, he wasn't really blessed with much athleticism or physical ability. He's 5'10" and 100 whatever. But, he knew how to throw a baseball. He really liked throwing a baseball and hitting. He just loved the game. He was just obsessed. He as he got older, he really started disliking the Yankees, and he started liking the Giants more.
Okay.
Because they moved to San Francisco, and he really was intrigued by Willie Mays and McCovey and all those guys, and he thought that was such an awesome team, and he was just sick of the Yankees.
Sure.
and that kind of stuff, though, me saying that is really important. It really comes into my childhood, though. His passion for one team and his dislike for another. It's interesting. So he eventually in high school moves to New Berlin. So my grandfather he was working for the federal government and he had to move the family from Iowa to New Berlin, and my dad finished high school in New Berlin. So that's where the Crawford roots began, in Springfield.
Okay, interesting.
Yep. So Dan Pa went to New Berlin, graduated, and went to the National Guard down in he went to the Springfield National Guard, and also down to Cartersville to go to school to be a machinist. So his playing days were over, but his passion for the game never stopped, and he would always listen to games on the radio, watch them on TV. Met my mother in Springfield through my aunt, through his sister, and they started at a house in Springfield. They got married in 1972, and they decided to move out of Springfield. My dad got a job with CNIM Railroad, and this was by the Pillsbury factory by Lanphier Park.
Yeah, know it well. Yeah.
Okay, and this is really important too, because my brother is actually a huge railroad historian.
Really?
Specifically for the CNIM Railroad. And while he was growing up, he was obsessed with trains, and he would chase trains all over the state and take photographs upon photographs. And to this day, he still does that as his hobby, and he does a model railroad, and he's written a couple books, actually, of the CNIM Railroad.
Wow.
It's pretty all because of my dad.
Very cool. And for those of you that don't know, your brother Ryan was an accomplished baseball player himself, and we'll get into that, but I just didn't want to leave that out.
Yep. So my dad got us a job with CNIM Railroad. They moved to Chatham, so his drive was to, Lanphier Ballpark every day for the next 20 years or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they settled in Chatham, and Ryan was born in 1975. I was born in 1978, and Ryan, basically, the minute he could walk and throw a baseball, he was already good at it. And for some reason, somehow my dad was able to teach it, and it stuck. And next thing you know, by the time Ryan was 6 or 7, he was already playing ball and ready to rock and roll. And I was not far behind, though. So at 2 years old or 3 or whatever, I was throwing too, probably watching my brother.
Sure.
And I was throwing BBs. My dad was saying that I could just pick up. Yeah, I could just pick up the ball and just throw the ball.
Yeah.
So I already had that going for me, and it was with my left hand. And you combined, my brother being there, my dad's love for the game, and during this period of time, my dad started listening to games on the radio, and he turned into a big Cardinal fan.
Okay.
He really liked Jack Buck. He really liked the Cardinals. He started really liking the Cardinals in the 70s, and he'd be out in the garage working on the car or whatever, I guess, and always had the game on.
Yeah.
So I was always hanging out, listening to the game too, and asking questions, and I think about it a lot, but being so, like, when I try and really think about how it was back then, I think I just, knew that I was good at baseball because I remember reactions from my parents and other people, and it just kind of like grew from there. Every time I picked up a baseball, I knew I was good at it, and I was like, boom, 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 Yep. And then I would see my brother doing it, and we were just like, when it came to like grandpa and grandma talk, or like hanging out with some relatives, we would be like the talk of the night or the visit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jeremy and Ryan, they're playing ball and they're doing good and blah blah blah. And it was always something fun to brag about for us.
Right.
We were the ball players of the family.
I've got the perfect clip right now from your dad. You ready for it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
It's clip time, buddy. And just what you talked about, like that you just had it. Your dad gave me a quote on that too. He said he never taught you pitching mechanics. You just had it. You could just do it. It was just kind of within you. So that was totally in line with what you just said. Here is a clip.
By the time he was 5 years old, well, him and Ryan both. I played ball with them all the time.
Yeah.
About every spare minute we had, we'd go out in the yard and play catch, and I'd toss them the ball, and they'd hit it, and this and that, you know.
Yeah.
By the time Jay was 5 years old, he could wind up. I mean, he looked like a little pitcher out there, probably 30 feet from me catching, and he would throw bullets right at the mitt when he was 5 years old.
That's really
was
cool.
Remarkable.
Everyone. Were you able to pick that up, Jay?
Yes. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, and you know what? I'll tell you a funny story. So my brother, it was like a Saturday afternoon. It was hotter than shit out in the Midwest, summer, and I'm like probably 5 years old. So my brother's like 8 or 9 or whatever. And hold on here. And my brother and my dad were outside playing catch. And every time that happened, I knew that I was going to get my turn. And there was like baseball on TV. It was a perfect summer day. And I was like so pumped for my, and 20 minutes later, my dad comes in. He's like, no, we're not playing catch right now. And, my brother just walked, in and, didn't really, didn't hesitate and walked, didn't break stride. And I just absolutely, the world was going to end. I sprinted right into my room. I dove in bed, and I just absolutely flipped the F out. It was, yeah. So a few minutes later of that unnecessary, BS that I was pulling, my dad finally comes in and goes, all right, let's go play. And so he, gave in, and I got to play catch, drying up my tears and stuff. Yeah. And, it's just to give you an idea of how obsessed and how, it was for me to make it happen with playing baseball. Like I would never miss out on a chance like that.
Yeah.
You
just loved it like that. It's clearly you're painting the picture that the passion your dad very much so passed down to you and your brothers. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And then, absolutely. So to add on to that, as we got older, my dad had this, and I don't know how he came up with the idea, but he basically built a bullpen on our backyard. So to take it one step further, he built a bullpen out of actual clay dirt so that it wouldn't be muddy when it got too wet. He had a clay dirt mixture, and we basically, Ryan and I, learned how to be a groundskeeper for our mound and our home plate area. And it would be like a daily thing too. It'd be on a daily basis for us. It would be like a daily chore during the summer. Yeah. We'd go out and just like work on the mound and the home plate, and then it would be all like perfect, like game day kind of thing.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And then like when Dan Pa would get home from work, we'd throw a bullpen to him basically. That's awesome. And so it was just, no one in the neighborhood and however many miles away did someone have a bullpen in their backyard, Yeah. So that was
those are the things that set you up for success. Like if your dad has the foresight to do something like that for you. I mean, Bensko had one in his backyard. I mean, O'Malley had a whole baseball field in his backyard. Like these are your son's up for. They at least have a chance,
Yeah, exactly.
So cool.
And then so it grew from there, and then what would happen is we would throw bullpens, and then I'm like throwing a bullpen the day before a game, and the next thing you know, I'm 10, 11 years old, not only throwing some decent, fastballs for strikes to my dad as a left-handed pitcher with, and this is,
Spinning it.
yeah, but this is what really captivated people about me as a youngster, because I really wasn't much. And that's what I love about my story too, by the way, is my physical inability or appearance. I was one heck. I mean, I had some smooth ass mechanics.
Yeah.
I just knew how to look like a cool left-handed pitcher with a good windup, And so I'm firing these fastballs in the backyard, and next thing you know, my dad has this curveball in his pocket that he shows me, and the next thing you know, I'm throwing these mean bullpens to him where he's like jumping out of the way, and he's like fascinated by these amazing disappearing sliders I'm throwing.
Yeah.
And I'm 11 years old, so so then I can talk.
I got a quote here.
Go ahead.
Your dad actually told me the same thing. He said that you learned to throw a curveball and a slider at around 12, and that you instantly got it. It was like that. It wasn't like it took weeks and months or half a year to figure it out. It was like he showed it to you, and you were spinning dirty curves off the table instantly.
You there?
Yep, gotcha.
Okay, sorry about that. Those moments with my dad where he would be like, "Oh my God, that was amazing!" Like after he was like so happy that he caught the slider, like he actually caught it. He's like, "That is a sick pitch, like unbelievable, man, oh man." So that kind of stuff really instilled confidence in me. That kind of reaction. I'm like, wow, I can really, let's see what this looks like in a game. And the next thing you know, I'm throwing in a game, and it's like mind blowing to people.
Kids are looking dumb. Yeah.
But the thing too is what the difficult part about this whole thing was I was very raw, very wild, and it was like it just wasn't so easy to control all the time, Yeah. So that was always a challenge, growing up, was not only being able to do that, but harnessing it,
100%. Let me hit a few more Dan quotes. Can I call him Dan Paw too?
Yeah, please. Absolutely.
All right, from Dan Paw.
Okay.
People used to be awestruck when he would be playing catch with you at your brother's games. So at your brother's baseball games, you on the side, playing long toss or just lighting it up, or at the park. Just that such a little kid looked like he really knew what he was doing. It was remarkable. Mm-hmm. And he said, clearly from an early age, you were gifted as a pitcher, but you didn't really dominate until about 13, 14. And then it was pretty much domination from there on out afterwards. And then the final one, I'm going to save some more like the high school stuff when we get there. But Jay was the cutest baby we have ever seen, and everyone drooled over him. All right, here we go. Yeah, we'll just let's start getting through Little League. Like you're about 13, 14 here, so like this is when things are starting to get a little more serious for you. Or?
Yeah, well, so my dad was partially my coach for a while, but he was mainly my brother's coach. When I was this age, and then finally my brother started playing in Sandy Koufax. No, before Sandy Koufax, I think he played Mickey Mantle, and he started playing with Brian McClure. You there?
Oh yeah, there's a name, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I was like on the side of all this happening, I was watching my brother go through all of these awesome Chatham baseball teams.
Yeah.
And my dad being being a catalyst for a lot of it with some other dads like Doug Ferguson, like Jerry Ferguson, and Larry Darwin, with Travis Darwin, and all these other players. I'm watching these kids grow up, and I'm idolizing them and watching their every moves while I'm learning to throw my curveball and slider or whatever you wanted to call it, slurve. And
how much older is your brother than you?
4 years older. So he was born in 75. I was born in 78. So
he was up to him, I imagine.
Yeah. Well, we had a very, love-hate relationship, a lot of fighting growing up and stuff. But as far as baseball goes, I just knew he was awesome. I idolized him. He was very confident. Like, I mean, if you talk to my brother, I think he's hilarious, and he's kind of bullheaded and just he's brutally honest and just really a little bit more animated than I am, but he's so confident, he's so to a point where it's cocky, arrogant about baseball. Even if you watch a game with him, he'll sit there and just be pissed off about something instead of just being okay with everything, right? But that's just his nature, and that's how he played the game. So I'm watching him not only acting like that and talking like that, but I'm watching him out on the field backing it up.
Yeah,
he was
powerful.
Great pitcher, great mechanics, threw strikes, good base runner, great fielder at third base. He came up as a third baseman in high school, and he just was like, he'd walk around and he would just, nothing was good enough unless it was your best. Like, that was just how he walked around when it came to baseball. And it was like he was just pissed off all the time. Now, I didn't quite have that kind of nature, but when I learned how to be like that, or that I had to be like that to succeed, that really helped, seeing him be like that,
Oh,
So,
I get you totally.
Yeah, so my point is, like, while all this was happening, I'm seeing this in front of me, and all these great games my brother's involved with, and starting to play for Moomy, and all of a sudden I'm in, the Mustang League or Bronco League or whatever you call it in Chatham.
Pony, Bronco, Mustang, all those things. Yeah.
And I'm starting to throw sliders and curveballs, and these kids are striking out. And then I discover Adam Feld in these Chatham leagues, and I'm like, who's this guy? And he was just blowing everybody away. And so while I was growing up watching Ryan play and dominating and playing on dominating teams and like winning tournaments, and they're all Chatham kids, and like every time Dan Paul would come home from work and Barb Crawford would come home from work, it'd be baseball talk, and it'd be like, this is where we are and this is what we're doing. And it'd be like, okay, check this off. All right. All we got to do is win one more. Let's go, or whatever, like those kinds of conversations. And, just to give you another example of like how my household was, it was watching baseball on TV. It was talking baseball with mom, with dad, talking about other players, talking about, our relationships with other guys and that kind of stuff. It was just like that all the time. And so not, I wasn't a major leaguer, but it was like part of our daily lives.
You were totally immersed in it. Yeah, totally immersed in baseball, the culture, thinking about it, talking about it. It was a baseball household. Yeah.
So the expectations were so high for Ryan. They were just going higher and higher, and he was meeting those expectations. And all these other players that, see, Chatham was like really like up and coming with the baseball, because of my buddy Darren McMasters, who I wanted to give a shout out to in this interview. Hank Sherman, like the late 80s, mid to late 80s Glenwood Redskins of the early Pat Moomy days. Those guys like planted seeds for years to come. And it was just like Doug Angeli, obviously, was the biggest one.
There's another name,
Pat Burwitz, and then my brother Brian McClure, Chris Stalitz. They were just like, there's these Mickey Mantle teams going to a World Series in 1990 for at Waterbury, Connecticut.
Okay.
This team that Ryan was on played against Alex Rodriguez and Mike Lull. It was a team from Miami, and there was another team from Cincinnati that had David Bell on the team.
Pretty cool.
And again, while I'm, third, fourth, fifth grade playing Little League, I'm seeing all this and experiencing all this. So even when I get away from baseball and play with some kids in the neighborhood about this and that, baseball still might be brought up in the conversation or in what we do. Or when I go home, it's back to talking baseball again about something else or watching the Cardinal game or whatever,
But you loved it. It wasn't like you weren't getting sick of it. Is that what you're getting at here?
Yep. Yeah. So my point to the moral of this story, sorry, I get carried away here, but on tangents.
That's what this is all for, man. That's what
yeah.
It's for.
So all this is kind of molding me into this baseball, like obsessed baseball kid. And while I was in these early years of, like going through going through elementary to middle school and all that stuff, my appearance wasn't ideal, at the time. I wasn't, if you saw pictures of me, it was hilarious. And I just learned to make fun of myself.
Yeah.
And know in the back of my mind that I could strike your ass out.
There it is.
It was like, I had that kind of thing. Like, I was always trying to make friends by always making fun of myself and trying to be the funny kid, even if it was at my own expense. But
a lot of people have echoed that. Yeah.
Yeah. But at the same time, I had this thing in my back pocket that when it came time to play baseball, maybe I could make a name for myself. And thank God I had that, because I really didn't think I had much else in my life at the time.
Goosebumps, buddy. I love how you're saying this. This is cool.
Yeah. So entering junior high, like sixth grade junior high baseball was a big deal, or, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade.
Yeah.
Before tryouts for the sixth grade, it was a seventh grade team and an eighth grade team. So they'd call the eighth grade team the A team and the seventh grade team the B team. Okay. And every year, and Moomy would coach these teams in the fall.
Yep.
And I don't know really how it is nowadays, but so this is back in like 1990, 91, So I'm entering sixth grade, and before the tryouts for the junior high team, my dad knew that there was only a couple of sixth graders picked for these teams. Mm-hmm. Every year. Pat Moomy never picked more than like 2 or 3 kids from the sixth grade class, because they'd all be seventh and eighth graders. And my dad always told me, I think you can make the team. I think you really have the ability to. Ryan made the team, and that was a big deal at the time. To make the team as a sixth grader meant you were like maybe the top echelon of your class baseball-wise.
Absolutely.
So he would take me, Ryan Green, and Mark Finolio, 2 of my classmates, and he thought these kids were pretty good ball players at the time, just from, coaching Little League in Chatham. We went out, he took us out to the junior high field and threw batting practice to us and hit us infield with their dads too. And he would talk to them and say, hey, I think your son and your son are good enough to make this team, but let's work together and try and make that happen. So we were like, my dad was out there making us practice so that we knew how far the distance was for junior high dimensions. And like, he'd have us pitch bullpens and we'd hit batting practice. And he was also, and I don't know if he really meant this or if he was just saying it to make me think it, but he's like, you never know when Moomy's driving by, if he, watching. Like if he sees us 3 practicing, maybe we'll make the team. Well, lo and behold, we were the 3 that made the 6th graders that made the team.
Yeah.
And one thing, and my dad, he knew Moomy pretty well from my brother playing for him for the last 3 years or so. So he's gained a lot of respect from Moomy, and like he's like, wow, we really have something special here with this program, with this town, with this coach. So he got to know Moomy's like expectations and his, what standards he was looking for in ball players. So that's how, he got me to buy into it.
Mm-hmm.
And he would talk to me like the night before tryouts for the 6th grade team. He goes, like, we were talking, and he was like really making it a big deal. And it was like one of those, we're outside, by the fire kind of talks, and he goes, I don't care how far that ball goes over your head, you jump for it and you run after it as fast as you can if you want to make this team. And I literally did that the next morning during tryouts. I was playing first base and someone threw it 10 feet over my head. I jumped up as high as I could it was pointless. And I did it, and then I ran after the ball as hard as I could and all this stuff. And I just, thinking about what my dad said. Now, at the time, I probably told him, shut up, oh, leave me alone, I want to go to bed now, or what, can I have something to eat, whatever. But looking back, he was so right, and I was right for taking that advice and doing it.
Absolutely.
And that's how I made the team. And then it was just snowballing from there,
That's awesome too, because it's easy to, like, when you're around that age, to be like, you don't know anything, Dad, and like, dismiss any kind of thing like that. It's awesome that you listen to it, attention to detail, and obviously it worked out. Cool.
And let me just share this story about my childhood and upbringing about throwing a baseball, because it's really important, like for my career and for others to hear, is that my dad told me one thing was to not cock your arm when you throw. So like if you, like basically like a catcher, don't throw like a catcher. And sometimes he would refer to it as don't throw like a girl, how, like the, but you see major leaguers throwing like that sometimes, and major league pitchers even throw it behind their ear and stuff like that. And they have strong elbows and this and that. But what he was trying to teach me was, have a long arm and get your elbow up and don't shorten it, and, throw like that. And he would talk to me about it all the time when we would play catch, when we weren't playing catch, and when we were watching baseball and watching people throw. I mean, and I was actually sharing this story with him recently, because I'm like, Dad, you don't understand how much this stuck with me. This one little thing that he taught me on how to throw a baseball and what not to do and what to do, I just took it and I valued it more than I realized over the years. And it really worked, and it really helped me throw the ball. And it was almost like I had this secret weapon behind me. It was my dad giving me like some good special information and special advice to be a better pitcher, and no one else knew it. Or like when we would see someone throw a ball, we would look at each other and go, oh yeah, it looks like he short arms it, and we'd be kind of like proud of the fact that we didn't short arm our, and whether it's right or wrong, I mean, there's a million different mechanical things you can look at in nowadays, from a throwing aspect. Everyone has their own way or whatever, but I didn't realize how much I valued it. And it's still engraved in my mind when I throw a baseball. So so my point to that was that one little thing that he always told me that might not have been a big deal was the biggest deal.
That's really cool, because that falls in line with, we've had some conversations or text back and forth, and you told me that mechanics were huge for you, and you like used to study, pitchers on ESPN and watch baseball games, and you were all ate up just watching how their arm moved, how their hips worked. And then even I read an article about at one point you were giving lessons at a new era baseball facility around where you're at, and talking about getting into the mechanics, and like that was really big for you, and like hip separation and all this stuff. So that's totally Me too, man. I am obsessed with hitting mechanics on the opposite side, the hitting for me. So
Yeah.
I totally get that. I think it's art, it's beauty, it's bodies in motion. Very cool.
Yeah, and you know what? And a side note, I started a new job a month ago teaching boxing, and now I'm teaching boxing to Parkinson's disease clients. And our job is to help them, relearn how to walk, let alone do some training, exercises and things like that. But the ultimate goal is to help them learn how to box. And teaching boxing and those mechanics are very similar to baseball.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and
throwing your hips and absolutely.
Yeah, and it's amazing how much I've learned in that regard. And it brings me back to a lot of mechanics that I learned as a pitcher and as a hitter and all this stuff, growing up. And so while this was all happening, and watching video, see, I was in 6th grade. This was the fall of 1990. And that's when I started being obsessed with Michael Jordan. And he's he is supposed to be in this story.
I know.
So
this is one of the funny things. I'm excited. Are we getting there now?
Yeah.
Whatever you. Okay, let's go.
Yeah, because
everyone that I talked to mentioned that you were obsessed with Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And like mimicked him and knew his mannerisms and his moves and let's go. Yeah, Michael Jordan time.
Yeah. So what really like another part of this whole Jay Crawford puzzle is Michael Jordan and a VCR and my own TV in my bedroom when I was in 6th grade, because I discovered Michael Jordan Come Fly With Me.
Oh yeah, great. Great.
Yeah. So this one of my brother's friends came over with it. He got the Sports Illustrated free, video or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Hey, let's watch this." And I started watching it, and I'm like, my jaw hit the floor. And I'm in 4th grade, I think. And I'm like, oh my God. I had to watch it over and over again. Everyone in the house was watching it.
Yeah.
And we're like, wow, that was amazing. But I wanted to like borrow the video from him and watch it every single minute of every single day. I don't know what happened. It just, it was over. So I'm watching this and before you know it, my mom's buying me like dazzling dunks and basketball bloopers. It's like all these NBA entertainment videos from time to time for like Christmas or birthday. And
were you a basketball player at this time?
What's that?
Were you playing basketball?
Yeah, so I would play like YBA basketball, like the Youth Basketball Association.
Yeah.
And I wasn't very good. I was a lefty shooter. Everyone knew me as like the baseball player, but I could shoot a little bit. But it was just I just wasn't very physically gifted, But I could do a little bit here and there. But again, I was only like 10 years old,
Right.
So, but I'm watching Jordan, and I'm like, and then I like I'm driving by and I see a neighbor with the basketball hoop that's lowered to like 7 feet, and he's like dunking with the mini ball. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks fun. So
it'll change your life. Yeah.
It changed my life. So next thing you know, my dad dug out the home plate area of our bullpen and poured concrete over it. So he basically made a huge lane where home plate area was, like a huge like free throw lane, but a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And put a basketball hoop on top of the backstop, because by the way, we had a backstop in our backyard, connected to the fence, the chain link fence,
Yeah.
So he put a raise and lower basketball hoop connected to that backstop, and you spray painted home plate on the free throw lane, where home plate was supposed to be. So now our dirt area where we used to slide into home plate has now turned into a basketball court. So now I'm in the backyard every single day with a mini ball and a breakaway rim, and I am dunking like a maniac over and over. Yes. So if you want to know why I am kind of scary athletic in a very unathletic way, it is because of Michael Jordan. And like I would wear like Air Jordans, and I'd have like these bike shorts on underneath my Umbros.
Yeah.
And I'd have like a Bulls jersey on, or like,
Yeah.
and I'd be like doing kiss the rim dunks and cradle dunks. Yeah, and my buddies in the neighborhood, we'd be like playing against each other, and I was like lighting it up all the time. I'd be like dominating everyone in the neighborhood. My buddy Jason Villar from Griffin, best friends growing up down the street. He went to Griffin High School. He and I were obsessed with Jordan. I would, like when I would go over to his house down the street, I would look at Michael Jordan, like the Michael Jordan posters on his wall. I would probably look at those more than I would look at him.
That one where his arms are outstretched.
Yeah, or like, just whatever he had. I'd be like, whoa.
Just amazed by it. Yeah, there's one where he's like dunking the moon. That's like iconic.
Yeah, yeah. So, and then I like over the years, I gathered all those, pictures and posters. I mean, money, just, books and shoes.
Yeah.
Videos, like every time the Bulls were on, I would record them on VHS. So now
I'm
perfect. I'm stuck with. Yeah.
Go ahead.
But
go ahead. I've got one. Actually, two Jason Werth quotes that are perfect right now. This is through Kim. This is from Jason Werth. Jay had one of those very useless talents. Ask him any date from the start of the NBA season till the end, including the playoffs of Michael Jordan's career, and he can probably still to this day tell you who the Bulls played, if they won or lost, or most importantly, how many points MJ had. And the second quote has nothing to do with it, but it's hilarious. And it says that you used to steal beers from the Blackburn's garage and walk over.
Yep. Now it's funny how you brought those 2 points up in the same sentence. But anyway, I would write down the Bulls schedule on, line paper during the season, and I would write down Jordan points, dunks, the score, and I basically like memorized it every single day, and so next thing you know, I'd be like, okay, ask me what he did on November 8th of 92, and I could just tell them like who they played, and to this day, I probably could tell you like pretty close what his stats are for a lot of certain games.
Did you enjoy The Last Dance, this documentary that came out in the last couple of years?
I loved it because it put them back on the map, and it kind of shut up a lot of like doubters about the greatness of Michael Jordan and the greatness of LeBron James. And I liked LeBron James. I liked watching him play. It kind of brought me back to watching Jordan, and I was kind of rooting for him. But then and I'm biased. I'll be honest. I just think Jordan's better. I think he's the greatest of all time. I lived those years. Every single minute I was consumed by Michael Jordan if I wasn't consumed by baseball or whatever. And and I know that he was the best, and it was like there was just no doubt in my mind. I'm not saying LeBron isn't that great or whatever, but it's just hands down, But anyway, and I got to see him play in person. That was one of my, pretty cool bucket list things. Was I got to see Jordan play against the Warriors back in '96 when they had, Rodman and,
oh man,
Pippen.
That's cool. Yeah. Squad.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so the reason I want to bring up Michael Jordan and the obsession and all that stuff was, if I didn't get into this like I did, if I didn't get into him, and if I didn't get into basketball like I did, I would never have played professional baseball.
Oh, it like helped your athleticism.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. So did I Did I go to a gym and do speed drills, plyometrics, weight training, this and that growing up? Absolutely not. I did not.
You were just dunking like a maniac in your backyard.
I was outside doing plyometrics,
Yeah. Not knowing that.
calisthenics,
Yeah. Right.
with a basketball in my hand
Right.
and
Yes.
a lower hoop, and I'd be breaking rims. I'd be breaking neighbors' rims.
Yeah.
And I'd jump higher every year and I'd raise that rim every year. Now, did I dunk 10 foot? Absolutely not. I wanted to at a time, but when baseball started overtaking,
Sure.
but was I my senior year or my first or second year in pro ball? Was I still playing basketball from time to time out in the driveway doing rock the cradle dunks? You better believe it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think this is actually the perfect time to get into this, because you talked about, kind of getting your body more athletic, jumping and all this stuff. You also had a little help from, one of my favorite people in the world, the number one fan of this podcast, Kim Werth, around this time, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So let me just, I'm going to backpedal just for a minute and say,
short story, buddy.
But before the Kim Werth and the Jason Werth stuff started happening, I had to go into the Southwest Sandy Koufax League for that to happen.
Okay.
My brother had already done that a few years prior and won like the MVP of the league and all this stuff. And it was such a big deal in the household. My mom fell to her knees almost when she heard Ryan won the MVP one year of Sandy Koufax. And it was this, big deal. And they had this like Chatham baseball team there, like mostly a Chatham kids playing at this Springfield league. So that was an interesting thing that was going on. So anyway, well, when I was 11 years old for a 12 and under league, my dad signed me up to go into Sandy Koufax.
Okay.
So in the winter of 91, they had a draft, and I was like the last pick of the draft or something by Bill Pippin of Breakfast Sertoma, the late great Bill Pippin.
Wow.
He drafted me as this 11-year-old lefty because at the tryouts they were at Lincoln Land, and I was like a nobody there times 10 because there was a lot of like older kids, and everyone was there to see this guy and that guy. And then all of a sudden I show up, and again my appearance is so hilarious, and all of a sudden I'm throwing Fernando Mania curveballs and stuff and fastballs, and my mechanics, and it was oohing and on, and Bill Pippin took a chance on me in the draft as this underage kid, basically, because my dad was so like, let's put you in some better competition and see what you look like.
Yeah.
And so we went like 0-19 that first year. We had Tony Pippin on the team and a bunch of other kids from Springfield that I didn't really know. But my dad wanted me to play in this league because my brother did. Sure. And so I would pitch once a week. We'd have a couple games a week or whatever. And all these games were such a big deal back in the day because, again, I'm watching my brother do all this. And it was always the talk of in the house. So these summer league games were such a big deal. And I would go out there and just start chopping lineups. These older kids just could not touch the curveball. But it would only happen for an inning, and then the wheels would fall off, and I'd walk the next three guys the next inning, and we'd lose. So we went 0-19 that year.
Yeah.
But everyone knew it was like a stepping stone year for everyone, including myself, and we were really excited about the future. And the next year, Bill had the same team, but he added a bunch of Chatham kids because my dad formed a relationship with Bill and started to get to know a bunch of other folks. And next thing you know, we had a bunch more Chatham kids come over to Springfield or to Southwest Sandy Koufax at Schlitt Park.
Mm-hmm.
So the second year at Schlitt Park, was 1992, and that's when the Flame formed.
Flame, yeah,
Yeah.
buddy.
And I don't know, like, if the Flame was formed before this.
I don't think
Yeah.
so, but I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure. This
Yeah.
had to be very early in the Flame days, though.
Yeah. So
If
92,
it wasn't the start.
Sandy Koufax had a travel team.
I think it was. I think this
Yeah.
was the start of it.
Springfield Flame, led by none other than Mr. Dennis Werth, the former major leaguer. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I remember trying out, I made the team. It was like there was an A team and a B team. I was like on the younger B team.
Uh-huh.
And it had Luke Harms, Luke Funk, Greg Killian, a lot of Plains guys. Maybe Todd Schneller was not on that team. He was on the other team. Yeah, there's a bunch of other. It was a really fun time. Adam Mueller, Matt Mueller.
What about that famous basketball player that was on that team?
Robert Dye.
There we go.
Yeah, Roger Brown, a Chatham kid. Yeah, Robert Dye. Yeah, of all people.
Right.
You know, the Robert Dye. You know, like I watched him play in college ball at Bradley. Well,
yeah, unreal.
Yeah,
he was Superman for a couple years.
Right. And you know, but you know what? If you got to see him pitch back in the day, he was smooth. Yep. He had a good arm. He had a good head on his shoulders. Like he knew what he was doing out there, so he could have easily been a ball player.
Yeah, that's an athletic family. I'm actually close friends with his younger sister Crystal. I came up with her. She was CSA Athlete of the Year in 2003 too. So strong. Strong genetics in that family.
Yeah,
good athletes.
Like if I saw Bobby, I would give him a hug and then I'd ask him for his autograph, probably. So. Yeah, but I did get to see him play against Illinois back in the day when he was with Bradley, so that was really cool.
Lit it up.
Yep. So he was on that team, and we would go to tournaments, and that's when I got to know Jason a little bit and Dennis a little bit, but I didn't really play for them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but they knew of me, and it was like, I think everyone kind of knew that good things were to come.
For you, yep.
Well, for me, but for the whole like Flame organization, you know, the two teams, there was a lot of good things going on on the older team with Adam Feld. With Werth, Craig Moreland, all these other guys, and I knew that maybe I was going to have my chance the next year.
Okay.
Yeah. So I played in '91 at Sandy Koufax with Bill Pippin, and we went 0-19. Well, the next year, my 7th grade year, I made the travel team for the Flame. But that Breakfast Sertoma Southwest Sandy Koufax team, I don't think we lost the game that year. Oh, so we totally went from winless to undefeated in one year.
First.
Yeah. And now I was 1 year older. I was of age for this league. And I was just mowing everybody down that year. Mm-hmm. And I had a catcher too, and I don't remember who the catcher was, but it was just a better situation overall because we just really didn't have, you know, the players we had in the first year was just kind of thrown together, you know, hoping for the best. But this time we had some kids from Chatham, and we just dominated, you know. So we had that going on, and the team, the Flame, and then it just kind of ended, and the older Flame team kind of went on their way, and I kind of lost touch with the whole thing, and I just kind of went into the rest of the summer not playing, and then going into junior high for the fall of my 8th grade year.
Okay.
So I didn't really spend too much time with Werth or Dennis. I didn't really know Kim at the time. So at this time, they weren't really in Chatham. I just kind of knew them from Sandy Koufax.
Okay.
And so now I'm going into my 8th grade year, and every single year in junior high, there is a there's an expectation to make the state tournament. Every single year I've been in junior high, our team made the state tournament. So there was no getting around it. Again, my 8th grade year, we were definitely determined to do it again.
Yeah.
So it was like the expectation. And things really started to turn and come together for me as a pitcher. Like one of those eye-opening moments was that fall of '92. It was the game to get to the state tournament. It was at Pawnee, and we were playing Cahokia, and I think I struck out 14 batters.
Okay.
And I was just mowing them down, and we won, and everyone was just like amazed by the performance I had.
Open some eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, my curveball, I mean, it was like everyone was frozen pizza or swinging and missing in the dirt. And I had moments like that too throughout the summer with Sandy Koufax games.
Yeah.
But when you got into the junior high, games and the high school games, that's when, stuff really got serious and really intense. And I came through in a huge way that game. And I mowed everybody down and went into the next game, our first game of the state tournament. And I was just so off that day. I was in my head and I just couldn't throw a strike. And we ended up losing probably by the 10-run rule. I was just really, really off. But we still made it to state. It was still a great year. Like, we were really proud. That season in junior high, before the game that we played against Cahokia, where I struck out all those players, we played a game against Rochester, and it was against the great Jason Werth. And this is when I didn't know Jason too well. He was with the Flame, and I didn't get to spend much time on that team with them.
Yeah.
But I knew he had some respect for me, and I had respect for him. Like, we would say hey to each other, like when I got up to bat and he was catching.
Yeah.
I don't remember what he did against me as a hitter when I pitched against him, but it was a huge game, and it was it came down to the very last inning, and there was a fly ball to right field or a base hit to right field in the last inning or something, and I was playing first. And I don't even remember if I pitched at all. I think I didn't pitch this game because my arm was not good from another game pitching, But Downs threw a perfect cutoff throw to me, and I fired that ball into home and held the runner from going home. And we ended up winning the game and moving on. But I remember that game was a big deal because I think it opened up a lot of eyes for the Werths.
Yeah, absolutely.
For Jason and for Dennis. And I think my dad even talked to Dennis and got to know him a lot, maybe even during this game or maybe on and off. But see, all these relationships were being built during these games.
Yeah.
And all these moments really mattered, when you look back on it.
It's all connected.
Yeah. So anyway, so we fall in the state game, and we go into the summer of my 8th grade year, which is the summer of 1993.
Okay.
And I wanted to, I was overly obsessed with Michael Jordan and the Bulls and following their games all the time. And baseball season started in April at Sandy Koufax, and I was playing one more year there. And a lot of people are moving on because they were older than me, going into their high school years. But the Flame was still intact for travel ball. So my plan was to play on the travel team and pitch and try and make a World Series, because I think I ran into Dennis a few times or talked to Dennis a few times, and he always said, we want to go to a World Series. We want to win a World Series, and you're going to be part of it.
Yeah.
And he would talk it up a lot. Well, that spring there was a tryout. There was a tryout for the Flame, and we all show up. It was like an early Saturday morning, and I didn't know too many guys that well on the team. I didn't know Jason that well. I didn't know Jeff Cox that well. I didn't know Todd Schneller that well, but I knew of these guys. And Adam Feld was on the team, and we were all sitting on the bleachers before the tryout started. And Dennis Werth was standing there talking, and John Schneller, love John Schneller, by the way. I don't know if you know Todd. They got to talking about the season and what the expectations were, and like one of those pre-season talks,
Sure.
and what what we're doing and stuff and trying out or whatever. And see, this is what's so funny about me is I just have this way of like saying some of the stupidest things at the worst times, and but thinking that it's appropriate and cool and stuff. So listen to this. So, and you gotta, I mean, someday if you ever get to talk to Werth about this, it's freaking hilarious.
Okay.
So
here we go.
So we're all sitting on the bleachers getting ready to start, and Dennis goes, "So does anyone have anything to say?" And I raise my hand, and I'm like, and I have like these huge ass glasses on, and I'm like kind of chubby, and I'm just a mess, but I'm just a good pitcher,
Yeah.
but I'm just a nervous wreck, but I'm like always willing to make fun of myself for a minute to get a laugh, but I was serious this time, and I raised my hand. I'm like, well, let me just share this. So last year we went to this tournament on the B team, and we were getting ready to warm up. And as we walked up to the field, we saw all the other team warming up, and they didn't have any shirts on, and they thought they were really cool. And you know what? We just came together as a team, and we just really tried hard and tried to win. Or so I said something like that. And if you can just see Adam and Werth and Jeff and Craig Moreland, those guys sitting there, because they're a bunch of punks already,
Right.
okay? And they're like,
did they eat you up for that?
They're like looking at, they're like this. They're like looking at each other, and then they go like this, and they go, and even like Dennis was like standing there going,
yeah,
all right, dude,
sure.
all right, cool.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
so then
that was their introduction to Spitty's bat.
Yeah, right, exactly. So then so after a few plays, or drills or whatever here and there for the tryout, I have to go into the dugout and wait for my turn to bat or something like that. So there's like a period of time where I'm waiting. So I'm in the dugout. Jason's over there. Jeff Cox is over there. And Feldy's in there. It's like the worst possible crew.
Yeah.
Hanging out to get picked on. Right? And I'm the easiest mofo to be picked on. And Jeff Cox, the funniest dude you'll ever meet. Jeff Cox sitting there, and he goes, hey, Crawford, hey, will you tell me that story again?
Oh God.
And I'm like so nervous and like trying to make friends, and I'm like, man, I'm like, is he messing with me, or should I really tell him again? Dude, I started telling him the story, and he's like, really? And so, and worse, like in the corner of my eye, just trying not to just fall over, dying laughing. Feldy is sitting there, just like,
oh,
what are you doing, Crawford? Just shut up or whatever. It was just so. But I was just so embarrassed that I almost didn't even want to play for the team anymore. I was so like, oh, I'm such an idiot. So anyway, so I made the team because it really wasn't, I was a pitcher. I wasn't really like trying out, but you still try out. Sure. They needed my arm and everything. But as the new season of Sandy Koufax started, I just really didn't want to play for the Flame anymore. I was kind of embarrassed by that whole experience, but it wasn't just that. It was just like, do I really fit in to this kind of environment, to these great athletes that have all these really big personalities? And I'm like, I'm just going to stick with Sandy Koufax, play league ball, and not worry about travel anymore. And I told my dad, I go, I want to watch the Bulls.
I want to watch the Bulls.
Swear, yeah, isn't this funny?
I got my priorities, Dad.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch the
I
Bulls.
want to watch Jordan, and he's like, but
what's more important?
Yeah, and he's like, this season's gonna end soon. I'm like, I know, and I'm like, I want to just play for Rich Minder and Breakfast Otoma. That was my last year at Sandy Koufax. Rich Minder was my coach. I don't know if you know him I think he's from Taylorville. I'm not sure.
The name sounds familiar.
I can't remember where he's from, but he's a good guy. And Jeremy Minder is who I played with. I think his brother is Rich, his older brother. Springfield High guys, I think. Not Taylorville, but maybe Springfield. But anyway, so real good guy. He taught me a few things about pitching when I played for him. But I just told him, I'm like, we told Dennis, my dad told Dennis that I didn't want to play.
Really?
For him. Yeah. I decided I'm going to quit. I'm just going to play my league. And Dennis was crushed. Dennis was like on the phone with my dad, like dead silent, like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah.
He did. Dennis did say that he begged you to play. He said that he begged you to play.
Yeah. And so that felt good that he was begging me to play. No, I'm just joking. No, but
everybody wanted me. No big deal.
Yeah, but so here's the cool thing though. So while I'm watching all these Jordan games, in '93, and I'm wrapping up my 8th grade year in school, and I'm playing for Sandy Koufax. Listen to this. One game, it was my turn to pitch, and I faced another Flame player in Matt Mueller.
Okay.
He was from Rochester, I believe. But I can't remember honestly exactly where he's from. But real good kid. Played for the Flame the year before, and I was playing against his team that this one night. He and I struck out 18 batters each.
Jeez.
I happened to get on base, and I think it was a walk. And I scored on a wild pitch, and we won 1-0. And that was set a record for most strikeouts in a game combined. So we both had 18 strikeouts.
Wow.
I didn't realize what I was doing, but even the team that I was playing for, which was meaningless, no tournaments, I wasn't working out ever. I was just playing basketball, which is working out, but I wasn't like going out and running and doing like an organized thing for baseball.
Right.
But I would go out there every week and I would just be chopping broccoli big time, just nonstop, just all these kids. And
chopping broccoli.
And as the Bulls season started winding down and it became more apparent that I should just be on the Flame.
As the Bulls season winds down. What a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah, right? But, Dennis talked to my dad a few more times and made some, he basically tried to make some arrangements for me. Like I could stay with this friend at the hotel. Like it was like I was some prima donna or whatever, but no, but it was funny. But I decided to join the Flame again.
Tingles, man, because that forever changed your life right there.
Yeah. And they had already been through a couple of tournaments, I think. They went to Paducah and did another something. And so there was a few weekends that already gone by to start the summer to end the school year.
Yeah.
And I basically just left my Sandy Koufax team and I joined the Flame, and the rest is history.
Man, it really is.
Yep.
Kim Werth always talks to me about timing and how important. I mean, you can have all the talent, all the tools, all the genetics, all that, but timing is so huge in an athlete's life, and like
Yeah.
being in the right place at the right time with the right people, and you were right there. That's where
Yeah.
you were supposed to be, and forever. You know, it was kind of a rocket after that.
Yeah.
To some degree. Yeah.
Yeah. And, there's so much I want to talk about, but it's so hard to, like, I can talk more and more about my youth and, following every Cardinal game I could. Oh, yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of go back to my childhood again before I get into this part of the story, because I wanted to explain why I am the way I am from a baseball standpoint.
Okay.
And another huge part of my life is Cardinal baseball. So my dad listened to all those Cardinal games while I was growing up.
Yeah.
And we followed the Cardinals when they were on TV. And while I was video recording Michael Jordan all the time, I also started recording a lot of Cardinal games and pitchers, and so part of my regimen, my training regimen, was recording, all these Cardinal pitchers, and I remember my dad brought home a heck of a year. It was a 1985 St. Louis Cardinals like World Series video or something. It's called Heck of a Year. It's on YouTube, but he would rent that for us, and we would watch it like all day, every day, my brother and I. And we would be in the living room on a summer day waiting for our game to start hours away. We had a 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock game that night.
Yeah.
And mom and dad would be at work, and he's basically my babysitter, but we're in the living room, like working on our swings.
Oh yeah.
Pitching, we'd play sliding. We made up a game called Sliding into Home. So I'd throw he'd have a pair of socks in his hands. I'd run down the hallway towards him as fast as I could. He'd have a pillow at his feet, and I would slide into the pillow like it was a base.
Oh man.
And he would throw up the pair of socks and act like he was catching a ball, like he was the catcher.
Those are the best memories, man. I love stuff like that.
And one time he would he took a wiffle ball bat, and we were like swinging the bat, and he absolutely annihilated me in the back. And it was so funny because it was like one of those moments where he would have gotten in trouble for doing that. So I took him for the team and said, it's okay, I won't tell on you.
Oh
okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So I got to bring that story up to him sometime. But we'd sit there and watch St. Louis Cardinal games. My grandfather had the St. Louis Cardinals movie, so it was the history of the Cardinals. And I'd grow up. My favorite player of all time was Willie McGee.
Oh yeah, there's more to this story.
He's still my baseball hero. I loved his mannerisms, his just how he walked and his hitting style and everything, and his stats were fun to watch. Just a great player to root for, and I really was so proud to be a big fan of him. And another reason for that was because my mom, and this is kind of bringing my mom into the mix here, going into that flame season that I was getting into in 8th grade. My mom is a seamstress, and she used to make uniforms and everything, but before that she would make Cabbage Patch doll uniform or clothes and Barbie doll clothes. So she kind of had like a side gig, like a hobby / side business making Cabbage Patch dolls, because when we were little, that's what was big, was Cabbage Patch dolls, flying off the shelves. Yeah. She made me a Willie McGee Cardinal uniform with a black Cabbage Patch doll, and it was wearing my baby shoes.
Gosh.
And it was sick. Willie McGee, yeah. Full uniform. Awesome. Yep.
Yeah. And I multiple people talked about your Willie McGee impersonations and your batting. We'll get to that more, but like he moved so distinctly, like his swing, his walk, his throw, his run. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that at some point.
Yep. Yeah. And he was such a huge part of my life as a fan, and I loved him so much that I would sacrifice my own at bats so that I could imitate Willie McGee batting. Yeah. Because it was that good.
Dennis talked about like kind of later on when you guys maybe were Thunder, and like you were pretty much a pitcher, only a PO at that point, but they would if things were like going well, they would like, hey, Spitty, go do your Willie McGee impression up there.
Yeah.
Like they would just put you in a game just to do that.
Yeah, well, and not quite that hardcore. I mean, I would voluntarily just go up there like Willie McGee because the game was out of hand.
Yeah.
You know, it was a fun moment, but most of the time I'd go up there seriously and try and, you know, do something. Sure. You know, but yeah, there was one time when I went all out Willie McGee during a hole at bat and it was like I think even the other team was having a just
enjoyed it.
Yeah. And even in pro ball, when the pitchers got to have a BP for fun, you know, every blue moon.
Yeah, would you Willie McGee it?
Oh yeah, I'd do a bunch of them, and that's another thing about me and how my baseball career was shaped was I was really good at impersonating and imitating players.
Brad Savoda said that. He said you were the original, the batting stance guy. If you guys know that, there's some guy named the batting stance guy. He's famous for like imitating all these different players. But he says you were the original. You could do that. That was your
For some reason I just had a knack for it. And but while it's really funny on one hand, on the other hand, it actually really helped my mechanics when I was being really me. When I was being the real me. A lot of times I would have this person and that person in my head, like Andy Pettit or Tudor, you know, John Tudor, whatever lefty I was obsessed with at the time.
Great reference.
I would be kind of like putting a little bit of them into me and vice versa.
Sure. Absolutely.
And when I was successful doing that, it was like, wow, that really worked. I got to keep doing that. And then I would add, you know, this and that the next time from another pitcher, you know, because I wanted to be like them so bad, you know.
Sure.
Yeah. And,
awesome.
and thankfully the VCR was at my fingertips because I'm like, I'm editing, you know, pardon me, I just got itchy nose today.
Okay, buddy.
I'm like over and over watching, you know, Sports Center highlights that I've taped, and I'm watching, you know, slow motion, you know, Al Leiter pitching or Mark Langston.
Right. Yeah.
You know, I'm just obsessed with these lefties and, oh, how did they throw that breaking ball? And, oh, why is he standing on the mound on this? Why is he standing on this side of the mound? And, you know, and then.
It's cool that you were so observant. I love that.
Yeah,
and it wasn't like now you can go on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok and there's slow motion.
Yeah.
Every angle you can think of.
Yeah.
Like we know mechanics so much more deeply than we used to back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. So very, very, very cool you to already be going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. So this is all in 8th grade, you know, coming into 8th grade, going into the Flame season, you know, it was already going on. So I decided to get my shit together and, you know, be like, get my head out of my butt and be like, okay, I'm a baseball player. I'm a great pitcher. Let's do this thing. Give me the ball, Dennis. Here we go. So I show up in June of 93, Capital City Classic at Schlitt Park. Okay. And this is like Fairview and Springfield Southwest hosting this huge tournament, this big invitational. I think it's like their first annual ever or whatever. And we won that tournament. And the first game that we played, we were playing against Fairview, and we were always the favorites against Fairview, but we always knew that they were good. But we knew we had Feld, we had Werth, we had Schneller, we had Moreland, you know, Matt Whalen. We were stacked. You know, we knew we were supposed to win. That's the kind of attitude we had. And we went into that game and we were just so tight, and we just couldn't get anything going against Fairview, and they were doing really well, and they were putting a lot of pressure on us, and we can't lose our first game of our tournament that we're hosting, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure.
And I just arrive in the middle of this thing, and I wasn't starting or anything, but it was apparent that I was going to be needed in relief. We weren't making it happen. We were supposed to win this game, and it wasn't happening. And now Dennis is pushing the urgency button.
Yeah.
And here I haven't been in a Flame game this whole summer, And here I'm like getting thrown in like, well, this is a big deal. Okay. And here's the thing too. It wasn't maybe that big a deal at the time, but, or I mean, looking from the outside looking in, but when I arrived and I was already nervous because, I'm like, I should have been here the whole time, but now I'm really here and now it's really happening. And I'm playing for Coach Werth for the first time.
Yeah.
And Jason's my catcher.
What an honor. Yeah.
Crazy. Like, this is where I should be. Yep. The pressure just absolutely mounted on me. I just started feeling it, and I was like becoming so nervous. And I'm sitting in that dugout, and the pressure, I'm just feeling the pressure, and I'm feeling the pressure. And I'm like, I'm going to be going in soon. I know it. And then Dennis, lo and behold, calls on me to go warm up in the bullpen. And I just absolutely came in there. I just couldn't breathe. I was like hyperventilating. I was shaking like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
But that was only in my head and in my body, I felt. I absolutely mowed Fairview 1, 2, 3. And I'm just,
was going.
Yeah, and I'm this chubby, like nobody athlete with these big glasses, just a goof, like no confidence. All right, this is just, I'm going to do this. I can do this. This is all I got in this life of mine. This is it right here,
Right. Yeah.
And I just let it rip. And I was like the hero of the game. We ended up winning. It was just one inning, I think, that I threw. But it was like the biggest, at the moment, it was like the biggest relief appearance from the comeback. Jay Crawford, Flame, Dennis Werth. Oh, my God, like the biggest moment. And I was back, everybody, that kind of thing. And we ended up winning that tournament. I don't even know if I pitched the rest of the tournament because I was known to only be able to pitch like a game and then be out the rest of the tournament because my arm would be sore all the time,
Yeah.
But I was now on the Flame, and I was now starting to build that relationship with Jason, Jeff, Dennis, John Schneller, Adam Feld, Kim Werth. I was in it, and it was like, my life at that point really just changed forever, and it was just amazing from that point on.
Under the Werth umbrella, not a bad place to be.
Yep.
And are we to get to my little Kim Werth place here? I just think so highly of her. I know you guys have a very special relationship. Are we there yet? Well,
okay, so we went through that season. We went to Omaha for a tournament, and that was a big deal because that was like a long travel bus ride, hotel stay. The times with my teammates there with Jeff Cox and Jason, and running around the hotel room and, just being stupid.
Dennis said that you would room with him and Jason a lot.
Yep. Yeah, and or I would ride with them, to the place. Like if we didn't take a bus, I would ride with them, and we just had the best time ever. Because, not only would I make fun of myself and be okay with it, but I was also good at like impersonating like Saturday Night Live characters, and this making friends that way through humor, and striking out guys through humor is basically what it came down to. And
that's what Jay Crawford does. Comedy and K's.
Yep. So I got to know Kim, and she was always talking about like running and working out, and I never really even knew much about her career. I only knew about Dick, her brother Dick, and like being and Jason being, really good, and Dennis playing, like all that stuff. And I knew Kim was a great track star, but I didn't really know really who she was and what she had accomplished.
You're about to find out, aren't you?
Yeah. So after, we had some great games that year with the Flame, great moments. We made it to the World Series. Jason never hit a home run or I never saw him hit one over the fence
Really?
until the game. Until this year, before we went to get us to the World Series in Texas, Houston, Texas, which was the goal. We were playing Fairview to get to that World Series, and Jason hit a grand slam off the top of the fence. Yeah, that was his first ever home run over the fence, and that was like a huge moment that was part of the clinching victory to get us to the World Series, where it was just pandemonium celebration.
Yeah.
But if you saw Jason at this time, he was just a tall, skinny dude, like just a thin nobody.
Yeah.
Well, a great athlete, but you just didn't look like much because he was so skinny.
Yeah. Yep.
But he could absolutely hit. But then all of a sudden he hit one over the fence, and then that was another sign of things to come.
Yeah, his power was starting to develop.
Yeah, I mean, we already knew he was like great at catching, could throw out runners, great
Super
athlete,
athletic,
great hitter. But
sure.
yeah, so we went to the World Series. I got to pitch. I got to start a game. I earned a victory. We ended up losing. But I can't imagine the players we played against in that World Series. I wish I could see the rosters. As a matter of fact, I wish I could see all the rosters of teams that we played against over the years back in the mid-90s.
Yeah, you never know who went on to be a big leaguer.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and there are some notable names that we played against that I'll mention. But I was a top starter for this Flame team going into every tournament. I had a game, and Adam and I joke about how I was kind of like the pitcher Dennis would say for like to pitch against the host team.
Yeah.
Because Dennis would like to showcase his number one, which was Adam Feld, and sometimes it was actually Mark Nunn too.
Oh, the Nunn brothers.
Yeah. Matt was on a Thunder team with he was on the Flame. Yeah, I think he was on the Flame too. I can't remember.
Matt and Mark Nunn, SHS grads, absolute studs. They both went on to play Division I baseball.
Mark had a cannon of an arm, and Dennis would have Mark pitch for us from time to time in huge tournament games.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Mark would just play on his other normal travel team. So Dennis would basically just have Mark help us try and win a game against like the toughest team out there, Yeah. Or it would be Adam, So Adam would be our number one, and then I'd be like our 2 or 3 guy on the Flame, and then eventually into the Thunder, and I would kind of pitch against the host teams. It kind of worked out that way, and it was kind of funny because, like, I would be like viewed as the worst pitcher of the good pitchers.
Yeah.
So I'd be saved for the host team. The easy win,
right?
The confidence blow. But I also like as true as that might have been, because it did work out that way at times. I went along with it and never complained about it, and I just pitched my game that Dennis had me pitch. Yeah. But then there was games where I pitched against some really unbelievable teams, and I just showed up and just had everything going, and everyone would just be like amazed about what I was doing out there. And my record with the Flame and Thunder over those years, I rarely lost a game. I mean, even in the most meaningless summer travel game or tournament, I rarely lost a game.
Yeah.
I did have a few bad games, but if you saw my World Series record and all those, I never lost a game in the World Series and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Back to Ken Werth.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So we lost the World Series, and then I go into high school now.
Yeah.
And freshman year comes around, and I'm on the freshman Glenwood team, and I'm on the sophomore Glenwood team, the JV team. So they'd bring up a few freshmen for the JV games, or I would play in the freshman games. And during that season, like during spring break one time, Kim up to this point, like I've gotten to know everyone, hanging out, whatever. We got to know each other, and Kim always mentioned, working out, running, track, this and that.
Yeah.
And she goes, Jay, you really gotta, go run with me. So she talked me and Feldy to meet her at the track one day at Glenwood.
Yeah.
And go through a workout. So
let me lead you real quick, because I've got a Kim quote that I think is
amazing. Okay, go ahead.
You ready for that?
Yep.
She was dynamic. I love it. All right, here we go.
The next thing I know, we leave there, and they lived not too far from us, and he came down and knocked on the door and said, hey, can we start running? And I was like, oh, sure. Oh my gosh, we started running, and I literally kicked his ass every time. And I kept telling him, I was like, I am an old woman. I go, come on. And he goes, well, I just never have done this, So we started running that summer before he started high school. And we ran. Yeah, I mean, and the whole time I would be standing waiting for him. And I'm like, seriously, how? I go, I am not running that fast. And he would just like, I'm trying. So then we'd walk, and we just talked. We would just talk and talk and talk.
Yeah.
And so from that summer, all through till his senior year of when he graduated and went to play ball, we ran together. And
really?
He would come down. Yeah.
Were you able to hear that?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah.
I love Kim. She was a huge part of my success. Great friend. We she was just so cool to be around. I would be over at their house, growing up. But you there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would be, I got to know Kim, and she was just an awesome person. She taught me so much about running and all this important stuff about being an athlete. And sometimes I would just go over there to hang out with Kim, and Jason would be there doing whatever, hitting in the cage, or Dennis would be over there, and but a lot of times I would just go over there and hang out with Kim. She'd be like cooking dinner. I'd be talking to her in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And just got to know her like that. And then, so I wanted to, like start getting in shape, because I knew that I had this talent, and I had to get better. And I knew that just playing basketball and, eating cheeseburgers wasn't
not gonna do it.
Yeah. So, and again, she would always talk about what she did. So she took Adam and I out to the track one day and put us through a little workout. And I'm like, oh, I could do this. This is fine. And the next day I couldn't move.
So sore.
So sore. But but after that time, Kim and I just formed this bond. And so I would go over there 2 or 3 times a week, it seemed like, and we would just go running for 2 to 3 miles. And at first she would kick my ass, and I was really slow, lethargic, hated running.
Yeah.
But she was cool, and she was Werth's mom, and she was fun and athletic, and like it was just great, to be friends with her, and all of her knowledge, and wow, I mean, and then at the time you don't really think about it, I'm just trying to get a workout in, and she's a good friend. But looking back, it's like, oh my God, she was like my trainer in a way.
Absolutely.
Like we'd work out together, she'd give me advice, or even just like personally, be there to hear my, life story, and she would share hers. And
she talked about it like that. Yeah, you guys got very close, and like Actually, no, I've got a bunch of Kim quotes. Let me just rip through some of these.
Yeah, go ahead.
And if any of these bring up anything you want to talk about, just go ahead and start talking.
Cool. Yeah, do it.
All right. Yeah. I just played that clip. She said, sometimes you would be waiting in the family room until Kim got done with like dinner, or putting the girls to bed. And then you guys would go run together up to 3 to 4 times a week. And just like you said, at first she was kicking your ass. And then eventually she said you started kicking her ass, and that you got in better shape over time, over the years. You guys spent a lot of time talking about life. She said you were so different, so unique. You were amazing with statistics. Really cool to watch him evolve from where he started and where he ended up. Simply amazing. When we started as a child, when we finished, he was cat daddy. Great work ethic, so funny. She said she didn't dream crush you like she did her own. I think she was at times pretty tough on them in terms of like trying to get the most out of them. Yeah. But she said she handled you a little more gently. Because
I'm
to be good.
Yeah. I'm a wimp. You know, I'm a lover. I'm not a fighter. I'm soft. You know, and that's okay. Yeah. And she knew that. So she did handle me differently. Because they're just a different breed. The Werth family. You know, they're just tough as nails. You know, this way or no way, kind of. You know, and it worked. But with me, she totally adapted, and we just had this great bond. And you know, it wasn't just what we did as far as workouts went. I think it's that we did it, or that I did it, was enough to make me what I did become. Because whatever she was throwing at me or putting on the table, I was buying into it. Yeah. And it just worked, you know? Obviously, and I can get to more details about the workouts and stuff in a minute, but go ahead with more quotes if you want.
Sure. Yeah. She says she has warm memories about long, hard runs with Jay, and great convos afterwards, talking about life. She said you were so special and different in a unique way, in a great way. He was so okay with himself and knew who he was. And that is so cool to hear someone talk about a high school man, like, or, you know, boy, I guess, like that. Cause I mean, high school can be such a crazy time trying to figure out who you are. So those are some pretty kind words by her. He would make me laugh so hard sometimes, whether he was trying to or not. He took advantage of every opportunity. He didn't care what people thought about him. So funny, just a funny guy. Never saw him fall apart in a tough situation. Not that type of person. Him and Jason had a great rapport, and I've actually got a clip for that. I'm going to go ahead and play.
All right.
He, I know that him and Jason had great rapport with one another. Sure. And I mean, like, I know that they had a relationship that was just nothing more than just, for me, just watching it. Like if you're just watching it, I don't know what their conversations were, but it was just like they believed in each other.
Oh, that's I like that. Well said.
Yeah, I mean, when Jason would go out there, or if Jay would shake him off, or whatever, like, there was never. I just felt like the two of them together they had a special thing, and it was fun to watch because they had total respect for one another. I mean, from my observation, it was just really good energy.
Pretty cool clip from Kim there. I'm going to keep rolling unless you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, no, I'll say that, whatever Jason put down was the right pitch to throw. That's what I'll say. Because, you know, it was coming from him. It was coming from Dennis. It was coming from Kim. Right. Yeah. But we did have a special relationship. You know, we weren't best friends or anything, but, well, you know, maybe in a way, but we just had this really good understanding of each other from my role and his role, and it just worked out perfectly, you know.
Yeah, and well said. Yeah. And I thought about this too when I was just kind of putting the story together, like digging through background. Like, Dennis obviously taught, you know, Jason a ton about the game and taught him how to catch, how to call games and whatnot. So just like you were getting this, you know, big league information essentially stepped down to Jason. So I mean, this guy was probably calling a big league level type of a game by 8th, 9th grade.
Yeah.
You know, that's just so
And
cool. So yeah,
I mean, not only that he called a big league game, but the way he looked like it, doing it, looked like a
yeah,
big leaguer. So just to give
right,
you another
yeah,
idea of what I was immersed in growing up.
yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
Kim also said never doubted that he was going to get opportunities because he always made the best of every situation. So proud of him. Worked on his craft. He evolved and embraced every opportunity to be the best that he could. She said when she watched you, she felt like a proud mama. So that was touching to hear.
Yeah.
She said she told you you can't be weak. You got to be tough. And that sounds like Kim.
Yeah.
She was cracking up talking about your Willie McGee stuff. She said she looking out the window at you guys in the famous Werth, cage in the backyard. And, people will be howling because you'd be doing all the Willie McGee stuff. And she said your nicknames evolved. Where do those? Can we just sit on that for a second? Nicknames. I've been wanting to get to that.
So
what we got?
Okay. Well, hopefully you're not.
Good. We're good.
Everything all right?
Yeah, we're good. My little paper here caught on fire for a second. I had it close to a candle going. I'm good.
Okay. Holy cow. All right. Well, let's not set your house on fire. Over me, at least.
All right.
So, okay. So my nicknames. So when I started playing for Dennis, because I was so unathletic and because I was so slow from a running standpoint, that when I would try and go fast, it was kind of funny. And when I would make a play off the mound, Dennis would say, just like a cat. So basically it was like sarcasm. I move like a cat, So then the next thing you know, they call me Cat Daddy.
Yeah.
And when you got, teenagers, just a bunch of goof-offs hanging around that can't talk right half the time, Cat Daddy turns into Kitty Cat, and then it turns into Spitty Spat, and then you start singing songs and making up songs about it. I mean, it's just these guys that I played with were just, and this, like baseball players.
Just culture, so it's just the locker room, buddy.
Yep.
What were some of those songs? Do you remember any of them?
Okay, so that song Kitty Cat Corn and I Don't Care?
Yeah.
Well, Werth and Cox would go Spitty Spat Sporn and I Don't Care, just playing on words, just mumbling, gibberish.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
And then not only would we do that, but we would listen to Adam Sandler, the Adam Sandler CDs that he came out with.
Gosh, those were
comedy
were
stuff
back in the day, man.
Yeah,
hilarious
and
too. Yeah,
the Jerky Boys.
Oh man,
so this is all coming out. Yeah, like freshman year, 1994. Like the year
Jerky
of OJ.
Boys, great reference, man.
Yeah, Jerky Boys and Adam Sandler were our go-to comedy CDs that we would play on road trips. So it was like
and
me,
for those
Dennis.
Of you that don't know, Sandler used to do like comedy, like skits and like songs and stuff. Like he had albums, CDs, and they were raunchy. They were super raunchy. And Jerky Boys were like these brothers that would prank call people. Is that right?
Prank call people, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, sorry, go ahead. I just wanted to get some context there.
So not only would we listen to these all the time, but we would be like on the field, like saying stupid stuff,
quoting
referencing
them.
These. Yeah. So, and to this day, I could text Dennis and go, "Hey, Jerky," or whatever, and he would laugh because it was from the Jerky Boys.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the nickname stuff was, it even evolved into, when I wasn't playing anymore and I was just hanging out with Werth watching football one day, 20 years ago, hanging out, he would call me Shitty Bat instead of Spitty Spat, and he would laugh because not only was it a funny way of saying Spitty Spat or Kitty Cat or Cat Daddy, but it also meant that I had a shitty bat, like I was not a good hitter, and that was actually true. Yeah.
So it worked on all kinds of levels.
The evolution of the nickname is right there,
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
I wondered where it all came
yeah,
from, and yeah, I mean that is how
yeah,
nicknames go, right? They ping pong here and they get
yeah,
bastardized here, and yeah,
yeah,
who knows? I
yeah.
love it.
So that's the evolution of that. But then back to Kim Worth.
Yeah,
Um, so we would so like we were at a double header at Illinois Wesleyan, and I think that's in Bloomington,
yep, it is.
and I pitched an inning in the first game, played the outfield maybe for an inning, and had a couple at bats. And instead of me hanging out for the second game of the doubleheader, Kim and I would walk down the street from the ballpark and just go running through the neighborhood for the rest of the game, for the
Wow.
for game two, and
Yeah.
talk about training and stretching, and she would always say, Jay, running is the foundation of fitness. Running is a good base. She would always talk about the base of
Yes.
fitness is, and the athleticism is, going for a run.
Yeah.
And as whether it's right or wrong, because I know, there's a million studies out there now, what is right, what is wrong for an athlete, especially for like a pitcher or a baseball player.
Sure.
But the fact that she would coach me and teach me those kinds of things and philosophies,
Yeah.
it stuck with me to this day. Not that I
Yeah.
go out and run 3 miles like I used to, but if I, when I'm teaching, when I'm talking fitness, I'm always going to talk about the fact that going for a run is probably one of the most important things to
Yeah.
do for starters,
Yeah. Absolutely.
and then you branch off with your sprinting and your plyometrics and all that stuff. And, but yeah, that's just little things like that. Those conversations that you had over and over again, the values that she, shared with me,
Yeah.
you know, that she was like my coach, and Dennis was like my baseball coach. She was like my life
Yeah.
and my fitness coach in a way,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Man, you are so lucky to have had those two in your life, man. Gosh, just the
Yep.
knowledge that they have.
Yep.
Man, lucky guy,
And,
man. Right place at the right time.
and they lived down the street from me, and
Yeah.
they, and when Jason went to high school, he chose to go to Glenwood. He came from Rochester. Spitty's back.
Spitty is back. That's perfect. It was actually the perfect place for us to stop. I have to cut it
Yeah.
at right about 2 hours for editing purposes. So
Oh, okay.
this is going to be part 2. We're going to
Yep.
keep rocking and rolling. Spitty, Spat, Kitty Cat,
Okay.
all of them. He's here. We are back in it. Let's a few Kim Worth quotes, and then we'll keep it moving. She said that she would love if a lot of kids would listen to this because wait, I had that quote wrong. This podcast, listening to your story, would give a lot of hope to a lot of kids if they listen. He never gave up. A great kid. An honor to get to know him. And then she said to ask about your Thunder Hall of Fame speech, and we'll get to that at some point for sure. She said it was really cool. So where I'm at right now is kind of we're rolling into high school. If you have anything to add, anything we just talked about with Kim Worth, but rolling into high school, and I really want to get into that Springfield Thunder, man. That iconic team that went to the, was 16U Cowboy World Series champs. Dennis Worth had a ton to say about this. I had Brad Savoda talking about it. So, are you cool going there now, or do you have anything else you want to tie up
Let's
before
go
we
to the
go?
Thunder days and
Thunder
my high
days?
school days. Yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, if we're gonna start Thunder, then you got to start with Dennis Worth, right?
Yep.
Yep. All right. Let me roll through some Dennis Worth quotes. And Kim said it best, and I love talking. This was really cool. My first time ever talking to Dennis. She said Dennis could talk to a wooden Indian if you let him. But it was great, man.
Yeah.
He said he begged you to play on the Flame originally, and later that became the Thunder. Said when you came to him, you were originally a very shy, little pudgy guy, almost kind of scared, and we eventually brought that out of him, Kim, and you.
Yeah.
Had the right nucleus on that team to bring him along and grow. So that was cool too. Starting off, didn't throw that hard, but he was something special. He has so much potential. His placement, where he threw the ball, his breaking pitches were great. He had a hard time not throwing strikes. He said actually that there were times he would want you to kind of get it out of the zone sometimes, and you were just like a strike machine. You had to do it. Kim got him out of that pudgy stage. I love that story of you and Kim.
Yeah.
It's like so funny. You and just Kim Werth running down the street with some pudgy teenager that's going to be a professional baseball player in a few years.
Yeah, hilarious. Yep.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. Talked about you, Dennis, and Jason sharing a lot of rooms together on road trips, bonding, doing that, going there together. Jason as a catcher was very helpful, huge to him. Another coach on the field by 14. He made Feld, Cox, and All J better. Great kid to coach and to mentor. Really, Jason had a huge hand in his development as well as a player and a person. He said the Thunder and the Flame and all those guys, you guys were taking like major league infields. Like you were very crisp as a team.
Yep.
Jay is one special guy, still is. We still talk sometimes. So you guys still keep in touch?
Yep. I just adore Dennis. I always have. Our whole family has, become friends with him. So it's always nice to run into them over the years. My folks too.
Yeah.
Dennis was, not just a former major leaguer, but a major league personality times 1,000.
He's a big personality.
Yeah. Sure. When he was on the field, it was a show, and,
like that,
so not only did he have all the knowledge and all the experience, but he had this presence.
Sure.
He had this walk. He, just the way he spit. I mean, it was just the coolest thing. It was like, oh my God, a major leaguer, right?
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah. And just so cocky, but goofy. Like it was a cocky, but in a good way. Yeah. So bigger than life personality, but very passionate, very just like he when he would tell you something about baseball, it was really coming from a good place.
Sure.
And you just took it and you just valued every little bit of that info. It was every once in a while Dennis would throw a George Brett quote to at you, or he would be like, hey, one time Reggie Jackson and I blah blah blah, and everyone would be like, whoa, like,
who can say something like that? Who can?
Right. So that was like the biggest trophy in our corner, right? Dennis Werth. And when you mentioned the infields that we took, it's funny, I actually was never part of those infields.
You saw him.
Yeah, right. No, but his thing and John Schneller, our assistant coach, they always talked about winning the game during infield.
Yeah.
Make sure, like when we go out there for infield, don't be throwing, the ball away. Don't be dropping the ball. Every single throw, every pop, every crow hop, every tag, every cutoff. I mean, if it's crisp and clean, you're winning that game already.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Moment you can beat that other team because they're sitting there watching you with their mouth open.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And whether it was true or not, again, it was just like one of those mentalities and one of those things that you took so seriously because it came from the Dennis Werth. Who would know better, right? And then you so Dennis, he had this personality. He had all the things about what a great coach should have. Just fun to play for.
Yeah.
And then you combine that with the obsession to win an amateur World Series that he brought to the table.
Yeah.
And his obsession with wanting to get the best players in the area to come play for us.
Yeah.
It was just such an awesome thing. And what was great too about Dennis is that he built a relationship with my dad and my mom And while I was transitioning into high school, and my brother was already in high school, and my brother had formed a friendship with Dennis because we lived down the street from them, and Ryan would go down the street and like kind of take some hitting lessons from Dennis once in a while. So Ryan was also benefiting from Dennis's, coaching and stuff. So they formed a friendship. And while this was all going on, my parents were in the basement of our house running a business, which was called Fabritech. And this was another exciting thing I was really excited about sharing with you.
Okay.
So who was going to do all these uniforms for all the cool Flamin' Thunder teams?
You guys did them?
Yes, we did.
No shit.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So we had, my mom started this business in the early 90s of sewing and being her own boss, basically. And it turned into getting contracts with schools to do their uniforms. Like Jacksonville Route, I believe, was one of their first customers.
Okay.
But yeah, the Thunder, we had all these really cool uniforms, and my folks were that team that, did all the uniforms. So Dennis was,
cool.
loving every bit of it because Dennis was at our house every couple days going over the designs with my parents of the logos and the branding. And
that's so cool.
Yeah.
I love these backstories. Yeah.
Right.
Dennis talked about the when you guys made the Springfield Thunder emblem, they basically just got rid of the L from the St. Louis Cardinals. That's what it was.
Yep. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. Right.
Yep. And Dennis was very creative and this, very clever when it came to that kind of thing too.
Yeah.
And then
I got a perfect clip. 1 second.
Go ahead.
Dennis Werth on the Thunder team name. It's really short, and I just thought it was funny.
Okay.
Who came up with it with the Thunder name?
I did.
Did you just like that, or just whittled it down? How did you come up with that?
No. Every time they put bats in our hands, we created thunder. So it was easy. So, and I wanted something with it. Yes. So I wanted something with a T because what we did is we took the St. Louis Cardinals STL and we basically took the L out of it, and that was our logo.
Okay.
But I mean, we took the same roster that we had been with the whole time, and we just walked right through it.
I love it.
That 16-year-old team, I would have put them up against any high school team in the state of Illinois, and if we would have played them 10 times, we would have beat their ass 9.
Yeah.
Isn't he great? I love the fire in his belly, man.
30 years later, and he still plays like he's pissed off, and
right, you can hear it.
That's the way that I am too when it comes to baseball, and that's because of him.
Yeah.
You can't play this game soft. You really got to go out there and just be overly aggressive and mean and mad. Mm-hmm. And Dennis brought that, to his coaching style in a way, that intensity. And so when we had that team and we had, we played in those tournaments, I mean, it was just lights out. When we had everything going, when we had Feldy, mowing everyone down, me mowing everyone down, Chad Duncan. Yeah. Chad Duncan was really our number 2 pitcher out of Porta. And then I was the third guy.
Okay.
So Adam would always start the first game of the tournament. Mm-hmm. Chad would be the next guy, and then I would be the third guy. So our roster, our pitching, we had so much depth in pitching.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Bryce Hager was basically a reliever for us, and no one could touch his slider. It was just unbelievable. We had Kevin Montgomery from Taylorville. He was a good lefty, good athlete. I think he played basketball for a while there. I'm not sure if he actually went on to play college ball, but he might have. And let's see, I'm trying to remember who else we had. We had Jeff Cox. Although Jeff Cox ended up not playing with us on our way to the World Series. Mm-hmm. because sometimes things just didn't work out, but we're all friends. When it's all said and done, we're all friends at the end, which is great.
Sure.
And sometimes things happened where no one was, or some moved teams or moved on from this and that. But yeah, that core: Todd Schneller, Jason Werth, Matt Whalen, Adam Feld, Brad Savoda.
Yeah.
Yep, we mowed. But it was all those tournaments that came before the World Series in Waukesha, Wisconsin in 1995 was what made it so special too, because you didn't win all the tournaments we played in, but we always went pretty deep. We had some bad games, but we had some really good games, and we saw Jason Werth mature into this and blossomed into this
Yeah, that must have been
mega
crazy.
star.
Yeah.
Seth Von Barron
He was a
from
stud too. He had a ton of balls
Vandalia.
for you guys, didn't he? Yeah.
Seth Von Barron was just one of the greatest but one of the best hitters I've ever seen.
Really?
Every time up, he was like we were watching him. We
Yeah.
were glued.
Feldy said that like you guys brought him in that summer because Worth was gone playing for the Pan Am team. And
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Oh, who's this catcher?" And he ended up hitting like 20 tanks that summer. It was like your
Oh
best
my.
player essentially.
Yep. Seth was not the best defensive player or the best base runner, or he didn't have the best arm, and we were kind of used to all those attributes from Worth.
Yeah. But he could swing
But
that bat, boy.
But what he did, he was a switch hitter, and
Yeah.
I could not believe the quickness, the power of this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he smoked the ball all summer for us, and he's one of my favorite players to this day of all time. If I was playing a video game right now, I would create Seth Von Barron as well.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was that. And when I get into my high school days too, we'll talk about that. But video game level stats that some of these guys were putting up. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine what our Thunder numbers look like over those.
Right. I'd love to see those too.
Yeah.
I bet Dennis has to have my bet somewhere. That'd be cool to see.
Yeah.
All right, let me rip through some more Dennis Worth quotes, and I've got a couple more clips. He was awesome. We talked for like 30 minutes. And I actually even I started. We're not even going to talk about this. It's not really part of your story, but I got off on a tangent with him talking about him building batting cages and the iconic Worth batting cage, and I think he was a little taken aback how much I thought it was just like this, magical thing. I remember like driving by the Worth house when I was a little kid and being like, that's Jason Worth's cage. Like everyone knew whose cage that was and what was going down there. But all right, anyway, there's my little rant.
No. Well, yeah. So I would be outside, mowing the grass or hanging out shooting hoops in my driveway, and I could hear down the road in the distance, with
Whack,
houses.
whack, whack.
Yeah, ding.
Yeah.
Ding. Ding. Yeah. And so I would walk over to Worth's house and I'd hang out with Worth while he was taking BP in the morning with the pitching machine in it. And then I'd take a few rounds. Then we play long toss. Then take some more BP, then go inside, watch some baseball, blah, blah, just nonstop. Yeah. And then it was all behind having that batting cage in the backyard.
Yeah. He had a vision, and like it's just so cool that like his vision, look what it ended up being. Jason had a 15-year career in the big league. He was all-star, World Series, like made a ton of money. He left his mark. Like it was pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
Right.
And or you had more quotes?
Yeah, sorry, I got
go ahead.
more.
Go ahead.
He said we played everyone from East Cobb, the Doolin Dodgers, Paducah Storm, the top teams across the country. These kids were thrown to the wolves every weekend. I thought that was awesome. We were playing China, Mexico, big teams like that. We were just this team from Central Illinois. We walked right through the Cabo World Series. I put this team up against. I played that clip. The Paducah Storm used to poach local players like Todd McClure, Corey Erickson. Then come home and beat. Then Corey, and then would come back here and like beat Springfield teams. So that's kind of what Dash was like. I'm not having this anymore. No one's coming back to Springfield and beating our asses. Like it stops now. I thought that was cool. That's why the Flame and Thunder were formed. Let's see. No.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. 5 of my guys came from the Thunder. We're talking, Jason Feld, Spitty Cat, Moreland Whalen. He said the key part to coaching is to tweak, not to recreate. Little key points you tweak. Trying to recreate someone, you're doing a disservice to them. Let's see. He said he said he was blessed to have the Werth family coming at him from 3 different angles. Myself, my wife, and Jason. And we were blessed to have him in ours. And I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet clip. And then I got a funny Dennis clip for you here. You ready for it? I got 4 clips total. All right.
Go ahead.
Oh God, he was just a laugh a minute. I mean, I don't every story every 5 minutes that you could look at him. It didn't matter if we were out to eat, and he was hilarious all the time. Just I not really. I can't pinpoint anything. I mean, great human being that just is a laugh a minute. Still talk to him every once in a while.
Yeah.
And if you had a team, you probably wouldn't want like 10 Jay Crawfords, but you'd want about 3 of them. You know what I'm saying?
That's perfect.
Isn't that great?
That means a lot, though. Seriously, I mean, and you know what also helped too was my acceptance of a role.
Yeah.
I accepted the fact that I was just a pitcher, quote unquote, for the big games, and I was kind of a side player. I was kind of a pinch hitter, fill-in outfielder at, whenever it was a meaningless game. But I knew I was going to pitch 1 game in a tournament.
Yeah.
But that's what worked, and I was okay with it. And again, if I wasn't pitching, I was working on comedy and trying to make people laugh and, trying to impress in that way. And it's just so much fun, so much great experience and laughs and things like that we shared throughout all those years and tournaments and stuff, Yeah. The best
cool.
time.
Last 2 about you. Love him to death. He's a great kid. And then his final quote, he said, "I'm easy to talk to and full of bullshit."
Yep.
That was great. All right, man. So moving on.
Yeah.
If we could get to this 1995 16 and under Cowboy World Series, winning that, what was that like for you?
Okay, so winning that it's very rigorous. It's not like a weekend. It's not like your everyday normal tournament. There was actually a round robin tournament attached to that you go through first, and then the championship round. So it was kind of like a college World Series format, round robin, pool play, or whatever. And when we arrived, out of the gate, it was on because we had not won a World Series yet. So it was just a different mindset coming into this thing, because in '94, we went to Crystal Lake, Illinois, and went to the championship round at the same World Series, but a year younger. And we just had a few bad games and ended up, not making into the championship, round or whatever. And it was disappointing because we had such a great season and we had an awesome group of guys, and we had lost the previous year in Sandy Koufax in '93 in that World Series. So this one, and kind of the window, not that we were like worried about how small the window was at this time or that it was closing, but it was like we were going to go here and freaking win this thing. It was like that. We had our minds made up. There was no other there was no other conversation, Yeah. So we went right into that round robin and won every single game. And I remember my first game pitching, I think it was game number 2, possibly. And I was a sophomore in high school. And I just remember going in there and just mowing everyone down. and getting ready for my next start, because the next start was going to be in that championship round a few days later, or 3 or 4 days later.
Had Jason rejoined the team at this point?
At this point, yes. So, and when he came back from that Pan Am team, and it seemed like he was gone all summer, and I don't know really how long it was at the time.
Right.
But it was like a huge breath of fresh air. He looked like a different person, almost. Really? And I don't know if it was just the Pan Am practice gear he was wearing around us and showing it off or whatever. But no, but it was just like, we just added a huge addition to our team.
Sure.
So that was a kind of a boost too, because, this is long, hot summers, tournament after tournament every weekend. But again, the urgency was there. We're in Waukesha. We blow through the first round robin, and then we go into the championship round, and I happen to be the first pitcher going in the first game of the championship round. And that was against Kansas, this team from Topeka, Kansas.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was actually from Topeka or Kansas City, but it was a team that we played a lot, like over the last few years, in this tournament and that tournament over the last couple of years before that.
Yeah.
So we were kind of familiar with these guys. And this was, again, a championship game, or a championship round game. And now it was really serious. And I was on a roll at this time with my stuff and my, my fitness routine. And I was really getting into everything. And everything was going fine. We were winning this game. And then suddenly I struggled in one of the last innings, and they ended up tying the game against us. And I remember the last inning just like kind of felt a little deflated. It wasn't supposed to be like this.
Yeah.
We had to lead the whole game. I had my game going, and then it kind of fell apart at the end, but we still were barely hanging on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was undefeated in World Series play at this time. Records to me at this time were kind of a big deal. Everyone always talked about their pitching record when it came to pitching, win, loss, that kind of thing.
Sure.
Not as much as maybe nowadays, But I remember saying to myself, man, I've never lost a World Series game in my career. I never lost one with the Flame. I never had lost one with the Thunder yet. I was like 4-0, 5-0 at this point. I'm like, damn, let's get a win. Come on. And it wasn't just about me and my record. It was just like those kinds of things that popped into my head while on the bench. And then at the same time worried that we were going to lose our first game of the championship round of a World Series that we were supposed to win.
Right.
And wouldn't you know it, freaking Seth Von Barron comes up in the bottom of the next inning, the last inning, and just absolutely destroys one over the fence in right field. And this is a memory that always sticks out in my mind, because this was the last game that I pitched on the Thunder before we won the World Series this year, okay?
Uh-huh.
He crushes one over the fence, and I jump out of my seat in the dugout, and I run onto the field, and I am like, I tackled Sabota, and he was like carrying me around on the field because I was so pumped that we won this game, and he came back and won it on a home run for us, and my World Series record was intact, even though I wasn't like telling anyone. It was just in the back of my mind. But
yeah,
it's just moments like that.
Yeah.
Where it was like there was no stopping us.
Right.
You're
on a mission. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we struggled. We kept we ended up blowing through the tournament more in the championship round or whatever. And we ended up playing the I can't remember who it was, but for the championship game, we lost the first game and then had to come back the next day and win the game to win the World Series. And so that was a really tough couple days because we were supposed to win it that night and it didn't work out. So we had to grind it out the next day, and I think we won 4-2 or 2-1 or something in the championship game. And I remember watching highlights on like Channel 20 back in the day on Paul Wapple, Sports Talk with Dennis. He did an interview with him.
Yeah.
Paul Wapple, yeah. And
great reference.
Yeah, and Brad Sabota, running off the field after he fielded the ground ball at second base, and everyone cheering, and that big celebration.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was just so, obviously it was awesome, the best feeling ever, but the whole process, the whole journey was really, yeah. What's that?
Special. Yeah, everything up to that point, leading up to that point. Yeah, it all.
Yeah.
That was a culmination.
Yeah, and then to, while we're talking about the Thunder, none of this happens though without my journey that I experienced, or this experience that happened to me a few months before this winning of the World Series, and that was making it to the state in high school and losing in the championship game, which is another huge story.
Let's pause. Let's hold off on Glenwood talk until we get. Let's get through Thunder before we get back into Glenwood.
So we won the World Series, and so we still had the Thunder intact after that. But the problem was, guys were getting older, and either guys were going to college now, or they're going into their senior year. So like Adam Feld, Todd Schneller, they were going into college for this next year. And so was, and then Jason and I, the younger ones, Jason and I and Matt Whalen, we all were going into our senior year. So there was a transition happening.
Sure.
That kind of turned the Thunder, it started to disassemble the Thunder in a way. Like the beginning of the end was 1996, the next summer.
Yeah.
But that doesn't go without some remarkable things that I experienced in this last year with the Thunder. We picked up Dennis Tankersley from St. Louis and Steve Collier.
Okay.
So the next summer with the Thunder, we went to a World Series in Cleveland, Ohio, Euclid, Ohio. It's a suburb of Cleveland. And we picked up these two guys, and Steve Collier was a second-round pick with the Dodgers.
Yep.
And he played in the majors. And he was on the St. Louis travel team, and so was Dennis Tankersley. And this guy named Braden Ketter, I can't remember his first name, but I don't know where he ended up playing. But we picked up three guys from this team. Dennis pitched Steve Collier the first game of this World Series. We lost the game, but we had like these guns on our team. It was pretty awesome. This tournament that we played in, it was a World Series. It was like, I don't even know what kind of World Series, honestly, it was, but it was just, the competition was amazing to watch, and to watch our guys still, be together and still play. It was still pretty special, and to see Werth. But, and while maybe we weren't going to win another World Series, even though we wanted to and we were trying, I had a front row seat to Jason Werth, every single game.
Blossoming. Yeah, absolutely.
And then when it was my turn to pitch, he was catching me.
Yeah.
And that summer, that last season with the Thunder was so incredibly special because it was kind of like an ending of a great era in Springfield and Central Illinois sports history.
Absolutely.
Going into a new generation of professional athletes in me and Jason Werth,
100%.
Yeah.
Well said. Yeah. Before we get off Thunder, I talked to Brad Sabota as well, and I'd love to go through some quotes of his if you're cool with that.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and man, it was an honor to talk to him. I really, like I said, an absolute football legend from the area, a stud athlete, obviously a great baseball player as well. played at Colorado State. He is currently living in Dallas, and he's in the oil and gas business. Got a wife and 2 girls, and he's doing great. Said you're a great friend, a fierce competitor during high school, but then the best of teammates and friends traveling around the country with the Thunder. Early on, you noticed that he had such great character, talking about you, very competitive, self-determined to make himself better, but also his teammates, coaches, friends. You always felt so welcomed and comfortable around him. Multiple people said that about you. You knew he was going to be successful in life and a terrific husband and an amazing father. You guys started off on the Flame together, he said. He said you were the ace of the Thunder teams. Said you were a Greg Maddux type pitcher for those Thunder teams, fierce competitor, locked in, tremendous student of the game, studied pitchers. Said your accuracy was amazing, could paint corners, was a savant on the bump, ahead of the age of guys, ahead of all the guys we played with. He messed with hitters. His mental ability separated him. Thinks that, this was an interesting thing he said. He thinks that with today's information, training, data, that in high school you kind of maybe were like a mid 80s guy, but he thought you would have been kind of like a low 90s or 90 guy.
Yeah.
Given today kind of what they have. So Jay was locked in on his days that he pitched, and on days he wasn't, he kept everyone loose. And I've got a couple Brad quotes here, or clips. Is that okay?
Let it rip.
All right, baby.
So, I mean, accuracy. I mean, he could paint the corners. He was well ahead of the age which we were playing. So he was just on the mound. I mean, he was a savant. So he could mess with the hitters. He knew where exactly to place the ball. He had great throwaway pitches, and just really was playing, a mental game with each hitter. And Jay's mental ability, I think that's where what really separated him. And then kind of, hey, like I said, he was touching 80, 85 and, decent velocity, but what stood out again was the mental aspect and the movement of his stuff. So that's why I said, like, the Greg Maddux ability. Not only, Greg wasn't the fastest thrower, but I mean, he could pinpoint and touch any corner, any position where the ball needed. And then I think the mental capacity of the game, I would equate, Jay to Greg as well. It's just, he was just always 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of the hitter on the mental aspect. Everybody I think knows, like, these days, the batting stance guy on YouTube and so Jay Crawford was the original batting stance guy before social media. So he did the absolute best Willie McGee. I mean, hands down, he was the best. He did it every chance he got, and every chance that we saw, we were in tears, just laughing. And then obviously any team that we, were up against, they saw it and they just cracked up. So he would do it, just, in between innings, in between games. And then if we encouraged them enough, like, all right, we're up, Spitty, get a bat, you're going to be pinch hitting. And, he would, the only way you could pinch hit Spitty is if you do the Willie McGee, live in a game. And he would be able to do that. And I mean, the whole place would just be in tears. But yeah, man, he was the best at that.
Great story. It was awesome talking to him.
Yeah, we formed this great friendship with the Thunder. Even though he went to Griffin and I went to Glenwood, we were just such good friends, and I would like spend the night at his house over the summer, here and there, and I get to know his friends from Griffin. And God, I had so much respect for him as an athlete, as a friend. That's why I picked him, to talk, because I knew, it would be great memories. And what a special dude and teammate and athlete. I mean, that kid could freaking fly.
Right.
He was, and what just the nicest kid. I loved his family. Never ever forget him. Just had the best time ever. So what a good guy. Real nice things to say.
Had an awesome time talking to him as well. That was super, super cool. Like I said, I kind of looked up to that guy growing up. Everyone did if you liked football in the area.
Yeah.
All right, my man.
Yep.
we're at high school. Let's get into some Glenwood. It used to be the Redskins. Now they're the Titans, but they were the Redskins when you were there. Let's talk about good old Glenwood baseball, and you guys were dominating the CS8.
Yeah, so I'm fresh off of junior high and watching my brother blossom into this great player in 1992 and 93, his junior and senior year, with Brian McClure at his peak, and then exiting Glenwood, and my brother going into his senior year in 93. Watching my brother and that team lose in the regional championships to get to the state tournament was a huge deal in my family and in our life. Got it.
Little technical difficulty. We're back again.
Okay.
All right.
Hello.
Hey now.
All right. So going into my high school days, I was just watching my brother Ryan, finish out his high school career. They did not make it to the state tournament, which was always the talk and always a big deal.
Yeah. And
we had Brian McClure, and it was like the greatest Glenwood team, arguably, of all time. With the mid to late 80s teams, starting to make some noise in Central Illinois, and then Brian McClure comes along, and my brother, and they take it to the next level and almost make it to the state tournament.
Yeah.
Brian McClure was a legendary athlete, hitter. He was the best hitter Glenwood ever had, arguably. I mean, depends on who you talk to. But Ryan, I think he's very underrated. My brother, I could talk about him all day when it comes to baseball. Now, I don't know if you'd want to talk to him necessarily all day about baseball, because you might get a lot of talk about trains. Well, that's another conversation. Yeah. But no, my brother was a third baseman and a pitcher, and he held the record in Glenwood history for the most wins by a pitcher at 26-0 lifetime. He was undefeated.
What?
Now, if you look at the official numbers, I believe it says 24-0, but there are a couple wins that elude him in the stat sheet for whatever reason, a shortened game or something. I don't know. It depends on who you talk to, especially my dad. Right. He says 26-0, so we always just say 26-0.
We'll call it 26-0.
Yeah, but if you talk to Ryan, he says 26-0. So anyway, but yeah, undefeated. He was the biggest gamer pitcher you could ever have. He was just, he was a right-hander through maybe in the 80s, had a good overhand curveball, but he was a bulldog out there. I mean, really nothing special. Yeah. And he wasn't really anything that special athletically, but he was just a damn good baseball player and one hell of a pitcher. Yeah, just one hell of a pitcher, and just won every game. Now he did have a few bad games, but they didn't come back to turn into a loss. So there was luck involved. But my brother, I would put him on a team with anyone out there as one of the best players that I'd ever seen play just growing up.
Yeah.
Especially with as little athleticism as we actually had in our family. He was a hell of an athlete. He could pick it at third. He had the record for runs batted in, I believe, for Glenwood for a while. Had hit for a great average and earned a scholarship at Lincoln Land.
And then he went on and played at Edwardsville after that?
And Edwardsville after that. And at Lincoln Land, he went to they won a World Series.
94.
But the state tournament always eluded Ryan in high school.
Yeah.
So going into high school and seeing Adam Feld a year ahead of me and being on the Flame and the Thunder, and knowing what kind of situation we had going into high school and the players that we were surrounded by.
Little technical difficulty. We're back again.
Okay.
Right.
Hello.
Hey now.
All right. So going into my high school days, I was just watching my brother Ryan, finish out his high school career. They did not make it to the state tournament, which was always the talk and always a big deal.
Yeah.
And we had Brian McClure, and it was like the greatest Glenwood team, arguably, of all time. with the mid to late 80s teams, starting to make some noise in Central Illinois, and then Brian McClure comes along and my brother, and they take it to the next level and almost make it to the state tournament.
Yeah.
Brian McClure was a legendary athlete, hitter. He was the best hitter Glenwood ever had, arguably. I mean, depends on who you talk to. But Ryan, I think he's very underrated. My brother, I could talk about him all day when it comes to baseball. Now, I don't know if you'd want to talk to him necessarily all day about baseball because you might get a lot of talk about trains. Well, that's another conversation. Yeah. But no, my brother was a third baseman and a pitcher, and he held the record in Glenwood history for the most wins by a pitcher at 26-0 lifetime. He was undefeated.
What?
Now, if you look at the official numbers, I believe it says 24-0, but there are a couple wins that elude him in the stat sheet for whatever reason, a shortened game or something. I don't know. It depends on who you talk to, especially my dad. Right. He says 26-0, so we always just say 26-0.
We'll call it 26-0.
Yeah, but if you talk to Ryan, he says 26-0. So anyway, but yeah, undefeated. He was the biggest gamer pitcher you could ever have. He was just, he was a right-hander through maybe in the 80s, had a good overhand curveball, but he was a bulldog out there. I mean, really nothing special. Yeah. And he wasn't really anything that special athletically, but he was just a damn good baseball player and one hell of a pitcher. Yeah, just one hell of a pitcher, and just won every game. Now he did have a few bad games, but they didn't come back to turn into a loss. So there was luck involved. But my brother, I would put him on a team with anyone out there as one of the best players I'd ever seen play just growing up.
Yeah.
Especially with as little athleticism as we actually had in our family. He was a hell of an athlete. He could pick it at third. He had the record for runs batted in, I believe, for Glenwood for a while. Had hit for a great average and earned a scholarship at Lincoln Land.
And then he went on and played at Edwardsville after that?
And Edwardsville after that. And at Lincoln Land, he went to they won a World Series.
94.
But the state tournament always eluded Ryan in high school.
Yeah.
So going into high school and seeing Adam Feld a year ahead of me and being on the Flame and the Thunder, and knowing what kind of situation we had going into high school and the players that we were surrounded by. You there?
We're there, buddy. Yeah, we keep having some technical difficulties. This is gonna be the time it's gonna work.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so I wasn't actually on the varsity team until I was a sophomore in high school.
Uh-huh.
And as a sophomore, I was basically the third pitcher in the rotation. I was behind
Feld
and Todd McClure.
McClure, okay.
So Brian McClure's younger brother Todd they had great arms. Adam was fresh off an 11-1. So let's see. So I was the number 3 pitcher. So basically, Adam would throw the first game against, the conference game on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Todd would throw the second game on a Thursday against the conference. And then I would be the first pitcher in the Saturday doubleheader against the out of conference games.
Okay.
So it worked out perfectly. We had 2 awesome pitchers to help us win the conference, which was our only goal of the year, actually. And then during the weekends, or for the doubleheaders, for out of town doubleheaders, or they'd come home, I would be the pitcher, and I was one of the best number 3 pitchers that any team in the area could have.
Right.
It was such a luxury, right?
Yeah.
We were just blowing everybody away this season, and it became more and more evident that we were going to be doing some special things.
Absolutely.
We even, yeah, and you know, one of the best players I ever saw in high school play was Corey Erickson.
Lost
And I
you there.
remember one of the best players. You
I
there?
lost you after best player.
One of the best players I ever saw play.
Hey, I lost you after you said best player, and then I lost you for a while.
Okay, one of the best players I ever saw play growing up was Corey Erickson.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Lanphier,
Yeah.
and they had a great team, and they had great players, and we smoked them.
Really?
I mean, we were just loaded. We had Adam Springer.
Yeah.
You know, Tom McClure was our shortstop. Craig Moreland was our third baseman. Craig Moreland was so underrated. He came over from Springfield. He was like our fifth hitter or sixth hitter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jason, obviously behind the plate. Adam was 13-0 in 1995.
Wow.
I mean, you could not touch him. He threw a couple no-hitters. And in May of 1995, on our way, you know, this is an afternoon game, a non-conference game. Charleston comes into town. This is in May. And a few days before, Adam had just thrown a perfect game against Taylorville. It was a 5-inning perfect game.
Okay.
So we come into this game against Charleston. It was a Friday afternoon, actually. And it was my mom's birthday, actually, May 5th. And I was already like on a roll all season, you know, pitching my good games as usual on a Saturday doubleheader. And I got this one start for, you know, this non-conference game. And I knew Charleston was a pretty good, you know, ball club. And they show up, and I just start mowing everyone down.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, I'm throwing a perfect game, and I'm looking for my mom because it's her birthday. And I'm like, I think I'm going to pull off something special today. And it happens to be my mom's birthday. And I'm like all excited and stuff.
This is the day.
And,
I got this marked in here. I'm not going to blow it for you. Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am just mowing everybody down. No one's reached base, and it's the 5th inning, and we're up. I think we ended up being ahead 9-0 at this point, and there was a play at the plate in the bottom of the 5th inning, and if we score a run, we win 10-0, and I get a perfect game. And I'm standing there in the dugout, and there's a play at the plate, and we come home and we slide, and I thought he was safe, and I'm like jumping up and down. I'm like, yeah, I threw a perfect game, holy shit, or whatever. Getting ready to celebrate, and our player gets called out.
Okay.
And so I had to completely shut it down and go back to work. I still had the 6th inning left.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, crap. I mean, I even remember saying to someone, oh, my God, I pitched a perfect game.
Yeah.
While we all thought he was safe. And when he got called out, I immediately just shut up, and I was like, oh, crap. You know, so I get back out there, and it was very nerve-wracking, but I ended up pulling it off, a 7-inning perfect game.
Man.
And it was really special because that was a back-to-back perfect game performance between Feldy and I.
That's nuts. I remember how many times that's happened in high school history.
Right. So yeah, it was great that I threw a perfect game and no hitter, whatever, in high school. But the special thing about it was on my mom's birthday, which I thought was really special because I've never actually thrown a perfect game before, so it was really cool to do that. But
Sure.
to be a part of a back-to-back perfect game.
Special.
Matt Whalen's dad wrote up a thing and sent it to Sports Illustrated to see
the
if
Players
we
in the
could,
Week thing.
Yeah, and we didn't make it. They didn't put anything of us in it, but it was pretty. That's a worthy story.
Absolutely.
Of putting that in the faces of the crowd on Sports Illustrated, but it didn't make it. But that's fine.
Crowd. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think eventually Billy Clayton made it when he had that game where he hit like 3 bombs in an inning and threw a no-hitter or something like that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
That's a good. Yeah, I do remember that now. But Adam and I, we look back on that moment like that was pretty badass. And I remember Matt Whelan's dad wrote up something for Sports Illustrated. But I remember Adam and I made the paper and everything. Like it was just a pretty cool moment for he and I, because we've been kind of like on this journey together.
Yeah.
And it was really starting to come together for us in this season. Because
give it a second. Sometimes it's a little reconnect.
Yeah,
there we go. Gotcha.
We were dominating the conference. We were, just our record was just ridiculous. And let's see, I ended up going 6-0 that season until one of the last games of the year before the tournament started, before playoff baseball started. And I went to Mount Zion on prom day of all days, at the end of May, and we just didn't play very well, and I earned my first loss of my career, and I was 6-1.
Okay.
So that was a bummer. I remember facing Ryan Edgar with Mount Zion. He was a stud. I think Edgar went on to do something. I don't remember where, and then I remember facing Brian Nickel from Mount Zion. He was awesome. He went to Eastern and played at Eastern. But that team was loaded. That Mount Zion team was pretty loaded, and they got I lost to them that year. Then we went into the playoffs, and we really struggled against Taylorville in the first game of the playoffs, and they were always kind of like the worst team in the conference every year during that time. But they still had, good ball players, and they still could beat us at any given time. But comparatively, they were probably one of the lesser teams in the conference.
Yeah.
And we were just like ready to steamroll everybody. And we almost lost to Taylorville that first game in the playoffs. Yes.
Yeah, not a good start, or not a good omen.
Adam, obviously our ace, he went out there, and I think it was a struggle, and we could not score runs, and we were just off all game because we were just a juggernaut. I mean, and Jason Werth wasn't even Jason yet, really.
Not like Superman yet.
Right.
Yeah, just like really good.
Yeah, but we just had this solid up and down team that had so many games under their belt, experience, leadership. Yeah. We knew how to win, and we were doing it. So we barely won 2-1 in the last inning against Taylorville that year. And then the next game we played against, I really can't remember the second game, but then we beat Lanphier to win the regionals. And that was another Adam Feld no-hitter. We won 11-0 and beat Lanphier, Corey's team, his senior year.
Corey.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, that's how on fire we were.
Pretty serious, yeah.
And so then we go on to sectionals, and sectionals is where, you move on to the state tournament, and that's been eluding us all these years. So we get to the sectionals, so we know we have our work cut out for us. This is what's really kept us from going to the state. We're not going to let that happen again, because the year before we actually lost to Morton, I think, in 94. And the year before we lost in the regionals, and the year before we lost to Rantoul to get to the state. So all these years we had all these great teams, but couldn't get over the hump. Finally, we make it to sectionals. We win 2-1, a miraculous game, the first game against Champaign Centennial. And then we won, I think, 10-0 against Mattoon to make it to our first state title in Glenwood history.
Against Morris?
Yes. So So then we move on. We win the sectionals for the first time ever. We move on to the state tournament. Adam pitches a 1-0 shutout against DeKalb. The first game. The next game, we're up, I think, 4-2 in the 7th inning, and Todd McClure, our number 2 pitcher, was really starting to struggle, and his arm was starting to hurt, and I was basically the first reliever to come out, whenever something bad happened.
Yeah.
And that was really all we had at that point. Adam Springer was our next guy in line, basically. Like, it was between me and Adam Springer as the number 3.
Yeah.
Moomy wanted to go to me. I came in relief, and I am beyond. Like, it was one of those Fairview, Capital City Classic Flame moments where I'm out there
overwhelmed.
just, oh my God. I can't even believe how I even did what I did. But all I remember is going out there and just letting the ball go out of my hand towards Jason's mitt. I don't even know how I was doing it because I was so scared. And luck has it, I mean, this ground out, that ground out. Next thing you know, we're just like going on to the state championship. I just got the save. I don't even know how it even happened. And we're just, oh my God, we're going to the state championship game. So not only did we make the state tournament, now we're in the state championships.
Yeah.
And I just got the save. Everyone thought I was so great and all this stuff. And I'm like looking around wondering how I even did what I did. So later that day was the state championship game. And I pretty much knew that I was going to be the starting pitcher for that game, but I think Moomy was kind of struggling between choosing me or Springer.
Yeah.
But he just made up his mind and gave me the ball, and I wanted the ball and I wanted to do it. But there was one problem. I was scared out of my mind. I mean, I was a sophomore.
Moment felt huge.
Yeah, state championship game. I was trying to be cool and try to be calm, but the moment was so much, it was too overwhelming.
Yeah.
And when I got out there, if you watch the video, it's on YouTube and everything.
It is. Yeah, it's on YouTube. I watched it.
I was very tight and very, I was just, I wasn't myself because I just wasn't loose and I wasn't confident, and I was, and they just, Morris was just all over me.
They were a good team.
They were a really good team. And you know what? They still did not really hit the ball hard off me too much. There was a few tough hits there, but I beat myself, and, I kind of got squeezed a little bit by the umpire. I just didn't come out of the gate, confident, and it was just a mental, struggle. It really was. And they put 7 runs on the board on me in the first inning and 2/3.
Yeah.
But what I love about this story is what happened after that game.
What we got?
Well, actually it happened during the game, and so after I got pulled out of the game and it was evident that we were going to lose, I was making fun of myself in the dugout about how horrible of a pitching performance I had, and I was cracking up Moomy the rest of the night, because he kind of pretty much knew we were not going to win that game, and I think he appreciated that I could just make fun of myself over the poor performance and move on and learn from it.
Turn the page.
And
yeah,
I was
absolutely.
determined. Yeah, I used that whole experience as a way to come back. Like, I love the comeback. I love that year, that spring was when Michael Jordan came back to basketball from baseball. So I was
you and Mike, baby.
Yeah, I was already excited about that. But I always like the comeback stories. I'm always kind of, I like drama. I love playoff baseball and watching it on TV and growing up and, that kind of thing. So what happened to me, I got the ball, 1995 state championship game, little sophomore, and I shit the bed. And I was okay with that because in my mind and in my heart, I knew I was going to get that chance again. And I knew I wasn't going to mess it up.
There you go.
Yeah. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So then, we went through the Thunder that summer and we won a World Series, and you grow and learn from that. And then the next season, the next high school season in 1996, my junior year, we came out like probably winning our first 13 games.
Yeah.
And it was the Adam Feld and Jay Crawford show. He was a senior, I was a junior, and it was just 1-2 all year.
Perfect timing. Let me get through some Adam Feld quotes. I talked to Feldy. He was awesome, man. Probably talked to him for 45 minutes. And he actually got a hold of me early when I started this podcast, and he just told me it was cool and he was supporting it. So thank you to Adam Feld. This guy's an absolute legend. He lost one game in high school.
And Adam actually told me about you and sent me your link.
Is that it?
Yeah, and that's how I discovered you. So, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah, so he's a fan of the show. Absolute stud. Went to Mineral area, Lincoln Land, Kentucky Wesleyan. Said you guys started playing together on Bronco Little League teams. One of those friendships where we can pick it right back up wherever we left off. This is a funny clip. I'm just going to play it.
Go ahead.
I hate using the term class clown, but that's kind of what Jay was the cat. Jay was the class clown, always kept it loose. And, I played on a bunch of teams. You've played on a bunch of teams, and you always have groups like, even on the teams that were real close and tight knit, you always had groups that kind of hung out together. Groups,
Absolutely.
5 or 6 guys, and nothing wrong with that. And Jay was always one of those guys that can kind of be in all of them, and kind of bridge the gap. Bridge the gap between all of them. He just got along with everybody, and Jay had a way to make people laugh, and typically it was by kind of being, it was like a lot of self-deprecating humor type thing. And he was Jay wasn't the fastest kid, and he would make fun of himself all the time, how slow he was and how he couldn't hit or anything like that. And, but then, Jay was able to, when it was his turn to pitch, flip switch and all business.
Yep. Cool clip there by him.
That gives me chills. I looked up to Adam. He was like ace. I wrote a book.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of writing a book about Adam I called it Ace. He was the epitome of an ace on a staff.
Yeah.
Unbelievable wind up. He had awesome stuff, and I watched it. I had a front row seat for it all, and we became such good friends. And we even had kind of a ritual or a routine every game before we'd pitch, and like play catch with each other and stretch and hang out, maybe give each other a ride to the game.
Yeah.
Best of friends. Still to this day, we're good friends, and but we kind of fed off each other. He was the ace, and then I was the next guy, and it was like the 1-2 punch, and we just loved. I mean, I loved it, and it's just another thing that it's just amazing, and that we had all these experiences and all the success. It really worked out so perfectly.
Yeah, you can tell that he thinks so highly of you as well, and considers you a very close friend. He said you're easy to get along with, be teammates with, mainly a PO for the Thunder. He said you guys spent a lot of time being pitchers together, sitting together, laughing, making fun of things, bonding. Yeah, like what you just kind of said. Essentially, that's kind of where your friendship grew. On the 96 team that won state, he said I won 12, Jay won 12. Let's see. When you guys played against Aurora Wabanzi, there was no scouting reports. You guys just showed up and played. So Jay had talent. He couldn't throw a ball straight if he wanted to. I would get so frustrated playing catch with him because my ball was so straight, and I was always trying to figure out a way to make it move or dart. And Jay didn't do anything special. He just showed up and
Yep.
It moved. Jay made himself. He worked his ass off to make himself a better pitcher, always trying to get better, stronger, faster. He said he always admired you for that. Very driven, great breaking pitches, command, movement, attack batters, had enough velo to get it done. Struck everyone out. It was ridiculous. Slider was tough on righties. I got a funny story here about, I'm just going to play it.
Yeah.
Another funny story.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you have any like funny stories or anything you want to share about him?
I've been thinking about this.
Awesome.
And I don't think Jay would mind me telling this one. It's not anything inappropriate or anything, but I know when Jay was this is one of my favorite Jay stories, but when Jay was a sophomore and I was a junior, our seniors on the team, Todd McClure, Adam Springer, and Jay was on the varsity, and he would pitch our weekend games. Like Todd McClure and I pitched the conference games during the week, and Jay would always get the weekend start. And so Jay was at every practice, a varsity practice, and as is Glenwood tradition, I think they still do it. Beginning of practice, beginning of games, it's like they run out to center field, get in a big circle, do a little stretch or whatever. I'm not sure where it started, but that's what we did.
Yep.
And so Jay would be out there stretching, and Adam Springer would run out there and basically pick up Jay and wrestle him or body slam him or do something. It was just kind of like the thing we did every day, and it wasn't malicious or anything. It was just Adam's way. And so I remember when Jay was a junior, I was a senior. We're going out for our first practice, and I tell Jay, I said, this is your moment. You got to pick somebody, and you got to start doing this. Start a new tradition. You got to go pick somebody. Body slam and wrestle, whatever you got to do. And he said, all right, on it. So I run out there, and here comes Jay, and I'm like, man, I wonder who he's going to pick. He ends up picking C.J. Logan. CJ's a sophomore at the time, and CJ's also like an all-state wrestler. And so Jay tries to like pick CJ up or body slam him, and didn't work out too well for Jay. I think CJ returned the favor pretty quickly, and that was kind of the end of that tradition, I think.
Do you have any comments on this story?
Yeah, I can confirm that happened. I was just gonna pick on somebody, and I picked the littlest guy, and I was on my back before I knew it. Yeah.
I love little inside stories like that.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
man.
because I'm just not a fighter, and I was, I was trying to be the Adam Springer, and that's just not me. And I was trying to, pick on the younger kid, and it was just funny that I ended up on the ground.
That's the universe's way of telling you this is not who you are. This is not your authentic self. You're a different direction.
Yeah, so that just put me in my place again. But yep. So that I was always good for that. But again, yeah. Well, I think it's great though, because I would be like, but it was when it was my turn to pitch, it was a different me in a way.
Yeah. Everyone said that. Every single person said that you were just like, hilarious, like prankster of the team. But then when you got on the mound, it was Bulldog time. It was Greg Maddox time. That's cool.
So
he said it was powerful for the underclassmen to see someone like Jay, who was really, really good, not take himself so seriously. I thought that was a great quote too. He could laugh at himself. It kept things light. You knew it was his day to pitch because the clown disappeared and the Bulldog showed up. How about that for a quote, man? That was great. Yeah. Oh, man, we got one more Feldy here, and it might be jumping a little bit ahead of your like. Let's see. It would be like jumping ahead to kind of like when you were getting recruited by colleges. So I'm just going to jump ahead.
He went down to like it was a junior college in Mississippi maybe, and the name is escaping. Meridian maybe.
Yep,
and
that's a big one.
So I think Jay went down there it was like when he was trying to figure out where he was going to play, and he went down there to pitch for him, throw a bullpen. And I don't know if it was in a camp situation or if he just went down there to throw for the coaches, whatever. I'm not sure what it was. But I remember him come back. I'm like, how'd it go? And he said he goes down there, it's 1,000 degrees, and he's in the bullpen, he's loose, and he's grunting, and he's pumping everything he's got into every pitch, and he's sweat's rolling off of him, and he's throwing every pitch as hard as he can. And he said he's like 84, 85, and he's throwing, and their coach is like, all right, Jay, whenever you're ready, you can let it loose.
Oh man, that's the good stuff. All right.
That was a great story. I totally was not thinking about that story about this for this interview, but that's perfect because that's the epitome of me. Traveling hundreds of miles, trying out for this college team, and this guy is like standing there. He's like he kind of reminded me of like Tom House.
Yeah.
Just standing there with his arms crossed. He's watching me, and I'm like, every pitch, and all right, whenever you're ready. And I'm like gassed already,
What'd that feel like in your heart when he told you that?
It was like, I'm probably not going to make this team, like, all right, let's go to the buffet, Dad, or whatever.
Let's go to the buffet, Dad.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, that was great. But again, it's like my story is one where I had the last laugh,
You certainly did, bud.
Yeah. So that my junior year, Adam's senior year, we were just, every conference game undefeated. I ended up losing a game that year, my second career game, in a relief appearance against Quincy late in the season. But then we went into playoffs, and Adam was 1 and I was 2. And we rode that through the playoffs and back into the state tournament.
Yeah.
Now, when you're talking about my journey to play professional baseball, this was the absolute turning point, or maybe tipping point.
Yeah.
Of when it all came together for me was in this season. So we were in the regional playoffs, on our way to state this year. So Adam pitched the first game against Taylorville and won. I was the next guy in round 2 of the regional against Springfield High. And it was at Quincy. Quincy hosted the regional that year. It was a Saturday morning game, and I struggled the whole game. I was in my own head. I wasn't loose. I doubted myself. Something just wasn't right with me and my confidence.
Yeah.
And I struggled, and Adam actually bailed me out and I ended up getting the win. He got the save, and he actually homered that game to help us win.
Okay.
And move on to the regional championships. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there watching Griffin and Southeast play after we played, and we barely won 5-3. And it was the worst game pitched all year by me. And I was really pissed off and embarrassed that I performed that bad, especially under those circumstances. So I'm sitting there watching the game behind the dugout or behind the backstop, and Moomy was kind of sitting nearby. And we were talking about the game before, and I remember saying something to Moomy. And, my personality and my relationship with Moomy at the time wasn't like it is now, of course, where we're friends. I respected him so much and admired Coach Moomy so much that I didn't quite talk to him like he was a friend.
Yeah.
And we're watching the Southeast Griffin game, and I was talking to some teammates or something about my performance or something that happened during the game, casual conversation. And I kept saying something like, oh man, I thought this and I thought that. And I don't know, I was just complaining about something, and Coach Moomy overheard me or something. And he goes, well, Jay, you got to stop thinking out there. Stop you just stop thinking and start pitching, or something like that. And it really, it really pissed me off. It really embarrassed me because it was like in front of some people.
Yeah.
But I was really mostly just embarrassed about my performance, and I knew I was better than that. And what he said to me kind of triggered me, kind of ticked me off. And I'm so grateful of that very moment because I really did take nothing for granted after that moment in time because I was so pissed about Coach Moomy and his little snide comment that he made to me.
Yeah.
About that game or about that moment or whatever. And from that moment, I made sure that when I got back out on that mound, nothing was going to be left out there.
Love that.
Yep. And so from that point forward, if you look at that game,
it's that bulldog.
Yep. And if you look at the games after this, is when you really start seeing the professional version of the pitcher, Jay Crawford. So the next game, so the next game that I pitched in was the sectional championships. So we were fresh off losing in the state tournament the year before. We're on our way to go to the sectional or the state tournament again, but we have to beat Champaign Centennial to get there. And we all know those sectional games are just so tough because we know from the past. And I was actually warming up in the bullpen the game before because Adam was really struggling the first round of the sectional against East Peoria.
Uh-huh.
For some reason, he was walking everybody in that game, and he got bailed out by an incredible play from Craig Moreland at short and some timely hitting, and we barely squeaked out a win from East Peoria, and I was warming up the entire game just about to relieve Adam, but it never ended up having to go in the game.
Okay.
Struggled our way into the sectional championship game, and this new version of me where I take nothing for granted, I show up. I'm like, this is, I'm going to do this. Let's go to the state tournament. Here we go.
Yeah.
First inning. 1, 2, 3. Struck the guy out. First batter. Okay. Next batter, fall behind 2-0. And I'm like, all right, I just got to get a strike over here and we'll be fine. Next pitch, 2-0. I serve one up right down the middle, and the guy blasted one over the fence. All of a sudden, it's 1-0 first inning.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit. So while I was on fire and kind of in a new mode, it was still a tough battle.
Sure.
And so I got off to a good start, but gave up that home run. Well, it turned out to be a huge battle throughout the game. But it was like one of those games where I hung in there, kept battling. We were close throughout the game, but we were always losing. Like I think we were down 3-1 at one point. But I kept hanging in there, striking out guys, getting out of a jam. I definitely wasn't the pitcher I was against Springfield. I was like chopping everyone down this game except for that homer or whatever. But we're down 4-3 in the seventh inning or top of the seventh inning, and Werth comes up and nails a line drive up the middle for a 2-run single to give us the lead. And I come out in the seventh inning for the first time with the lead, and I get out of another jam and we go to state for the second year in a row.
Wow!
And it was just an amazing performance that I put. That I was able to put together. And it was that was, so that Springfield High game, the Moomy comments, it pissed me off.
Yeah.
So
but even though you needed to hear those.
Yep. And then that game I struggled against Champaign Centennial, but we hung in there and we got, we pulled it off. and my performance was so heroic and so awesome, and Werth was too, and we're on our way to our second state tournament, and it was an incredible celebration. We go into the state tournament, and we face Carl Sandberg in round 1 from Chicago, and they had this dude named Forrestek. His last name was Forrestek, and I think it was Brian Forrestek. He was a lefty, and we were like looking at the program at the when you go to the state tournament, like the night before, you do this banquet kind of thing, and there's like a speaker, and all the teams are hanging out eating dinner.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the program, and we're looking at the team we're playing, and this Brian Forstek, left-handed pitcher, he was 13-0 or like 14-0, and he had a .55 ERA.
Dealing.
An absolute beast, and we were facing him. But so we were like, oh my God, wow, but we showed up and just hit the living crap out of the ball for the next 3 games.
Wow.
We just, oh my God. I mean, this kid, it was almost like he was destined to get rocked because he was so overdue. If you're pitching that good all year like that, there's got to be a game where you just don't have it.
Yeah.
Well, it was that game because we won. It was like 12-2, I think, was the final score.
Wow,
the guy didn't even know what hit him. Yeah, I think he ended up pitching with the Orioles organization.
Okay.
So we whooped him, and that was Adam's game 1, and now we're going into game 2. My revenge game. I haven't pitched in the state tournament since the championship game on live TV.
Pause. I got perfect clip I'm going to lead you right into this, okay?
Awesome.
This is Coach Moomy. This is exactly the right moment for this clip.
I remember they used to have a cookout for the teams, and on Thursday night before the state tournament, and there was a guy that was walking with us that was kind of had something to do with setting the cookout up. But as we were walking away, he said, "Yeah, I remember you guys here last year. I really felt sorry for that kid that got hit so hard." And I was walking. It was Jay that I was walking with, and Jay just kind of stopped and sunk his shoulders, and we started laughing at him because he was so good at stuff like that. He
laughing at
himself. He'd make fun of himself a lot more than he'd make fun of anybody else. Just a great kid that way. But I think he threw a 1-hitter against Moline.
Wow. Sorry if I took some thunder out of that, but the right place.
Yeah, we were at that banquet, and this old guy came over, and he goes, "Did you see Morris last year? They hit the ball hard." And my buddies, were standing there, and they looked at me, and they were like, "Oh," because I was the one that was, he didn't realize I was the guy.
Yeah.
Yep. But that was great because my next game, and it's just so weird how this all happened, but game of the state, going in the semifinal, I didn't know what was really going on other than I just knew I was going to go out there and dominate. I just had this thing about me. I remember the sectional tournament and going into the state tournament, we had those 3 or 4 days in between. I remember hanging out with Kim and going on a run with her and being like, this is it. I'm doing this. And, like, are you there?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like a new beginning for me after that sectional game. And I was like, because my curveball was just lights out. I was throwing hard, like my aggressiveness was there, my mechanics, everything was just coming together. Now I'm back at the state tournament. up against the best hitting team in the state of Illinois. This team, if you looked at their numbers, you wouldn't believe like some of the offensive numbers they put up that year. Apparently, they were the best offensive team in the state that year, and I went out there and just greatest game I ever pitched.
Well, speaking of, this year you led the CSA in ERA, 12-1, 1.75 ERA, 80 Ks. Just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, and I had a hell of a year. I remember, like, during the season, I remember like for example, if we were playing Griffin that night and it was my game to pitch, and I actually was at school that day, I remember sitting in class and just almost hyperventilating. I was so nervous because just because all I could think about was history, my brother, the expect.
Yeah.
And I knew I could not let anyone down. Or at the very minimum, I just my all, and it just wasn't that easy, So I was just really putting a lot of pressure on myself. Well, when I was at the state tournament game, the best game I ever pitched, I had this real calm demeanor about myself. For some reason, I just knew that I was gonna do well. It's hard to explain, but my bullpen was phenomenal with Jason, warming up. My first inning was just like, if you could write up a perfect, sequence of pitches, and especially with the arsenal that I had, if you could watch this video of me pitching against these hitters, Adam Field's father recorded it. Every pitch was just perfect. Everything that I threw was spot on. If I wanted to throw a curveball, to loop right in there for a knee buckler, and if I wanted to get him to swing and miss, I would throw that slider in the dirt. I mean, and my location was perfect. My fastball was moving 6 inches off the plate sometimes. I mean,
had your best stuff.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And the best hitter on that team, Anthony Molina was his name, and he went on to play for Evansville, I believe.
Yeah.
He absolutely destroyed a couple of balls against me foul. He was a left-handed hitter. But my
baseball guys were on your side that day, buddy.
The ball was moving. But that ball was moving so much that I was throwing that he could not hit it fair. Yeah. And what's weird is that the state tournament had weird baseballs. They had seams, so that helped a lot. Yeah.
Just get more movement, yeah.
Slider, curveball, everything was working. And the next thing you know, I'm throwing a perfect game. I'm throwing a perfect game through 5 innings. We're up 6-0. And what ended up happening was I gave up a base hit with 2 outs in the 6th inning. And that was it. Everything
one hitter,
else, one hitter. That was the pinnacle right there. We're going to the state championship again. I got my revenge.
Yeah.
I got my redemption. I remember going into the clubhouse after the game, for the post-game interviews with the news reporters. And they were talking about how I had lost the previous year in the state championship game, and how what does it mean to come back and win it now, this game. And I said, well, I was young back then.
Not now, I'm a man.
Yeah, so I was trying to be funny and stuff, and but it was just one of those games where I had everything going and it was the right moment. And that game was like the Jay Crawford game, because there was a lot of, obviously what was at stake in the circumstances, but scouts were there, and that led me to be invited to a few major league, tryout camps or whatever they had that summer. Was that game?
Oh, so we had in our text back and forth, you had mentioned that there was a game that forever kind of changed your trajectory. This is that game.
Yes.
Awesome. That's where we're at.
Yeah. So then I came in relief in the next game.
Hey guys, this is actually where we are going to leave it. We experienced some technical difficulties, as we had been kind of the whole podcast here. Jay is out in New York, so I'm not sure what was going on there, but we're going to leave it right here. Thank you all again for tuning in. I always harp on time being so valuable and precious, so thank you for giving us some of yours. Thank you, Jay, for giving us time to tell your story. Loved it. Can't wait for part 2. Thanks, guys.